Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can also find me at News Nerds Need. You can also find me at CB Caps on Instagram. And that sound effects you heard come from none other than our man in Brooklyn, one agent underscore 70.
What's going on, everybody?
Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at?
Whoa, that was weird.
What happened?
At the end of that sound effect sounded like it had a rip on it. Yeah, that one sounded fine, but weird. Anyway, you can find this here podcast on the Coastal Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find this at your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or the Cold Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. We are here tonight to talk comic books, which, you know, thankfully, given the name of the show, hey, this is what we do here.
Thankfully, they're still coming out in the midst of everything that's going on, right?
Yeah, so, pretty much. We are back into that.
It's nice to have our regular diversion. So,
well, I think we had a pretty good diversion with the event stuff, though. That was actually a fun little aside. But it is definitely nice to get back to, you know, the regular books at a point. Okay, apparently that's not going to work either, so that's fine. But regardless, we are going to start off with...
I was about to say, I think we mean different things about the diversions in life.
I think, I suspect you're talking about the current diversion and not
exactly.
Yeah, I know what you were talking about, but...
It's funny. All right, so...
But yeah, we're going to start off with Guardians of the Galaxy number 8.
Yes, Galactic Intrigue.
So I'm just going to go right off the bat and say that if Guardians happened to go the way of wanting to make this into a detective series with Rocket as the lead, I'm kind of all for it.
I have a feeling that at least for, what is this now, issue 8, and they've been doing this for what, like 2 issues now, you know, and kind of teasing Rocket as maybe not taking the lead, but definitely being... you know, kind of carrying a different storyline in the wake of the, you know, spoiler alert here, the supposed death of Peter Quill. You know, it's pretty interesting that they decided to go in this direction. You know, kind of a tease on, kind of a twist on what Thor went through at the end of Endgame. You know, there's obviously a little bit of PTSD here as well, but. Just let me rewind very quickly and say that the creative team on this book is it's written by Al Ewing, with art by Marcio Takara, with colors by Federico Blee.
Okay, cool.
So we pick up at the beginning of this issue, as Roddykat mentioned, with the continuing investigation. Led by Rocket Raccoon, and he is doing his best, you know, classic cop show, detective show impression right off the top, and we're going through the various accounts of what happened, and some of my favorite things here are, you know, the little interactions between the various delegates at the supposed peace conference. And it was interesting to see Rocket immediately jump to a suspicion he had with the murder weapon. And, you know, the art plays into this because obviously we're not completely expecting, what happens to actually happen. It seems almost too obvious, but at the same time, it's kind of a great little pickup. And it's a great reveal that's played out over the course of a few panels with the perfect foil, with the perfect person to run the particular test on the murder weapon. And I completely thought that we had seen the last of Cull Urt, otherwise known as the Super Skrull, for a few seconds.
Yeah, nah, I think we're stuck with him for a while. The other dude, however, yeah.
What's that?
I said that other dude, however, he's seemingly he's no longer in the picture. Thanks. Which feels like kind of unceremonious. His second hand, which was I don't want to say not causing rabble during Empire, but was definitely a slight dissenting voice in certain things.
Right.
But now we don't have to worry about him any longer.
Well, no more Val or,
Right.
I know that Roddykat has definitely had his issues with some of the naming, the naming techniques that they've used for some of these
Kree names are dumb, but
members of Kree that have been introduced recently.
Yeah. Well, not even. Well, like it's recently passed. Yeah, go for it.
I was about to say, like at least over the last several years, with the introduction of what was it, Captain Glory, as in Glory.
Right. Hell, Carol's Kree name, Carol. I mean, come on, really? Right. But anyway, but back to the Guardians. Though I do love, I do and have enjoyed the way that Rocket kind of went about this thing. And it makes sense because it's not like Rocket's not intelligent. He's not like he doesn't have knowledge about him and the thing. So it's like this sort of the particular thing, especially dealing with weaponry. That is pretty much his forte. And having been around enough people and seen enough stuff to be like, all right, well, I clearly know what's going on. I kind of know what's going on here. Like some would say he might have slipped up on one, but that wasn't really a slip up. It was just like, yeah, well, it is what it is on that one. But,
right.
Him, asking people to do certain things, to try to help out with the investigation. Basically, doing his own type of CSI or doing their own type of CSI in a way with what they had on hand. So it was all cool to see all of that. And I was like, you know what? I would actually, again, like I said, love to do it. I do. I'm reading from my notes real quick. I was like, yeah, so the murder scene is trying to make the snarks relevant again. Which, a long time, people of a certain vintage would know that it's a power pack enemy.
What's funny about that is that I remember them as the snarks, like the actual way that they, that the kids in Power Pack described the aliens, and I couldn't remember for the life of me what the actual. I had to actually read the alien race's name on the page and be like, oh, that's who they are, because I couldn't remember what they looked like either, to be honest. It's just been that long.
Right. And there was a chameleon there also, so I was kind of, but none of those shenanigans was in that. So it was like, that's why I was like, well, this ain't no power pack. Why are you bringing them up? But I get it. It's galactic, and so they're
right. I would add that obviously because this is because of the nature of the story, it's a peace conference and it's supposed to bring elements of as many of the alien races, of the peaceful alien races at least, or the sentient alien races that is, to the table for negotiations. It makes sense that they would include several, maybe not primary alien races that we know, but definitely, going out towards the fringes. And they even include the Chitauri, a recent addition to the Marvel universe, straight from the cinematic universe, really. And basically, it is it's the representative of the Chitauri that really gets the action moving in this book, in this particular issue, that is.
Right. Which, hey, the Chitauri have always been used for fodder, so why not at this point? But yeah, even
and the name of the representative should have been a pretty clear hint as well.
I know, right?
It's a little on the nose. When I read it, I was like, oh, Well, of course it is.
Yeah, I was like, wait, well, first of all, the name and the species don't really add up, but okay, we clearly see we can clearly catch what's going on here, what's
Right.
about to happen, or something's going to happen with this, and sure enough, kind of does. But even in the resolution of the issue and find out who was involved, it actually Rocket kind of, and not to give it away anything because I think it's worth a good read, but the delegate that Rocket ends up pointing to, I kind of had a same question about, because I was like, well, wait a minute, like these people are not really known to just come through a spot like this, for peace talk. So even when we met this person, or met the guys of this person last issue, it was like, that's kind of weird.
Right.
But of course, that person, the person wasn't who they pretended to be, and it ended up being someone, as I say in my notes, a holdover from Empire, who's was let go and is running. Well, not was let go. Who's running around, doing things.
Hold on, just for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to mention that this particular reveal of a character in their midst is continuing a spotlight being shown upon a new addition to the cosmic order in the Marvel Universe. As you mentioned, someone who played a relatively prominent role in Empire, and now we've got more prominence, and obviously with Al Ewing being at the controls of both Empire and Guardians, and as essentially the lone space book, you're going to see this character, the lone space book in the Marvel publishing schedule right now, at least. You're going to see this character play a more prominent role after coming off of what I thought was a guest spot, but definitely had a big spotlight in Empire.
Right. So all in all, it was a good read, and I noticed that Al Ewing couldn't resist a nice Blam reference in the midst of it.
Sure. If there was one criticism I had, it's something that plays off of a criticism that you've had for several years now, is that it seems like we are ping-ponging from event to event.
Yep.
And just as we're coming off of Empire and dealing with its after effects, we are rolling directly into the next event without much of any opportunity to take a breath and tell separate stories that aren't tied into events. Obviously, the pandemic has a little bit of a role to play in this. We may have gotten an issue or two more of interstitial events in between Empire and the upcoming event, which, there's no point in holding off on spoilers because we know what's coming up this winter, and that being King in Black.
Right.
So ping-ponging directly into King in Black in the next issue.
Yeah, that one was kind of a bummer at the end of this issue. I was like, really? This is what we're doing, huh? But again, yeah, that was definitely an issue I had with this.
I was about to say I retract that statement just a bit, because I forget that the next issue has to deal with the one missing member of the Guardians cast, that's been taken off the board, and then
True.
It appears we're going to tie into King in Black. So
Well, yeah, but it's still relative. So,
right.
So you still wasn't wrong about that.
We do end on a to be continued with a direct tie-in, but the very next issue is going to be dealing with one Peter Quill.
Right, and probably having something to do with the way that page kind of laid out. Sounds like it has something to do with King of Black anyway. So, but that being said, like I said, that being the bummer in this issue. This was a potential click of the week, not a click of the week, but a potential one for me because it's like everything before that last part was pretty great. You got anything else to say before we move on to another one?
No, that's it.
All right. Do you to go into Amazing Spider-Man 51 LR? Which, yeah, this is kind of another. We've said this for the past few issues. Like, this is kind of one of those ones that kind of could have been. Well, not this. I was going to say it could have been in one of the regular issues, but I believe I said last week that it seems like what the story was going to focus on was not the main focus on this. Like, they were kind of around, but this pretty much was like, well, here's this thing, and here's this thing, and here's this person coming back into the fold, and then and things kind of coming together on that front, but not necessarily directly about the people who the covers would suggest that it was. In fact,
right. I mean, we definitely see those characters. We definitely do see those characters, and we do get some of the primary storyline moving forward. But as we've kind of criticized before, this really could have just been a regular old issue number 52 or 53, however this would have fallen in the sequence, because everything moves forward in this issue. We pick up on every thread of this particular storyline in this issue, so it's mildly annoying that we're dealing with this alternative numbering system.
Right, and assuming things being things, like, this seems to do more to set up. I felt like it did more to set up the next regular issue with a potential team up than it did to do anything about the people that were on the cover. So, and again, also coming together of other bits that are kind of not necessarily loose, but just kind of there, bringing them into the fold proper. And actually kind of makes me want to see if what's the story on Mary Jane's book, because I believe
my understanding is that it was canceled, but I don't think they've come out with an official word. If I recall, the artist or the cover artist on the book basically said that they basically put something out on social media saying that these were the covers that were intended for the books that were going to come out.
Right.
So I don't know if they've ever put out an official statement. Just to circle back around, this book is written by Nick Spencer and Matthew Rosenberg with art by Federico Vincentini and colors by Marcio Meniz.
Sure.
I was actually Googling just now because as Roddykat mentioned, we follow up on these characters that are, kind of on the periphery of this mini event in the Spider-Man, in Amazing Spider-Man, and that's been given as the reason for these .lr books. We're dealing with we're dealing with the non-Spidey and non-Kindred characters, basically. If it's not Spidey and it's not Kindred, they're going to show up in these Last Remains books. So, and they're not even tie-ins. They're just, it's the main book, just the this wacky numbering. But in any event, we get brought up to speed on everyone being tied in, and then the Sin Eater at the end of the book goes off in a vastly different direction that I did not expect at all.
Yeah, I say in my notes, he's going after a target that might be a little much for him, given this character's history.
No, I was about to say, and given his current state of affairs,
exactly,
with the abilities given to him by Kindred being taken away, this doesn't exactly sound like the best idea. And the character that's teased in the cliffhanger at the end of the book made me, and I literally just thought of this now, like, I don't remember the last time we saw this character. And
You mean post Spider-Verse?
Oh no, we're talking Spider-Geddon.
Spider-Geddon.
I know that you didn't read, right. I know that that you didn't read Spider-Geddon, but I forgot where this character went after Spider-Geddon. That's where I remember last seeing the character. So just jumped on the wiki real quick just to see where this ends up going. And where this character went.
Sure.
So, I'd have to go back and circle back and see. But this character was, to me at least, a surprise addition at the end of this particular issue of the story.
Yeah, because leading up to it, when Senior was talking, it was like, yeah, we're gonna go back to somebody who knows who's talking, who hunts not on a hunt spot. I was thinking, we're bringing a Craven's son into this.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, that was not the case. But I'm like, okay, well, clearly they're bringing this dude in, but no, not so much. It's this other dude, which we still won't spoil at this point. But yeah, that's weird. The weirdest thing about this is I'm more interested in this Barney Greengrass than half of what was going on in this issue. Like, yeah, we get some updates about. We actually, I guess for people who are not reading anything outside of Spidey or less of that, like we get the news feed that was being shown in the beginning, that scene was being shown, that has the little crawl underneath it that shows other things that's going on in the world, sort of, or at least kind of alludes to them.
Yeah.
But then we see like the New Warriors, and then that was another thing that was like, oh yeah, I forgot the New Warriors was supposed to have a book coming out of Outlawed that hasn't shown up yet, if it's still planning to. But they show up and just kind of out of the blue to kind of help out the situation and get handled by the aforementioned Spider Folk running around. But outside of that, the Spider Folk just kind of come in. Come in, cause some havoc, leave. They touch upon, Norman Osborn is still around in his book, which actually brings up another thing. Now I'll go ahead and talk about this real quick. So I'm like, wait, so Mary Jane, we already saw is back in the Amazing Spider-Man, and she shows up here, and she's kind of she's driving around, and kind of has a run-in with the Spider Folk. And something happens, and then she gets found by Norman Osborn. And I'm sitting here like, how in the world did he even find her? Like, is he tracking her? Like, what's going on with that?
Well, that's supposed to be the surprise, because I think it took everybody by surprise.
Right.
He's just sort of hanging out on the Queensboro Bridge, as she's crossing over from Queens, driving in from the airport into the city. So, it's just, it's like, oh, here's Norman. Right.
But I'm just like that was like, wait, how do you know she was even here? And right. But anyway, I'm sure that will probably, I would like to believe, get answered in one of the upcoming issues.
Yeah, I was about to say, check that. It looks like, oh, you know what? There's a little bit of inconsistency, and it's definitely typical of Marvel, which bridge the characters are actually crossing. It looks like it's supposed to be the Brooklyn Bridge, so I will change that to Norman just hanging out on the Brooklyn Bridge and randomly picking up the car service car that is being driven, that is driving Mary Jane around, right?
Right, and you as a resident New Yorker would know better than I was like, I wasn't even gonna even attempt to figure out which bridge that was. So
I only say that because remember where Gwen dies is it's supposed to be, I believe it's supposed to be the Brooklyn Bridge, but it's drawn as the George Washington Bridge.
Sure,
so.
Got you. Oh, so you thinking that some of that might come out also, or you just saying that's been it?
No, I think it's just that that's what That's what I remember when it comes to trying to identify certain landmarks in New
Sure.
York. That like one of the things that sticks out in memory. Like that's not the Brooklyn Bridge when I first read that as a reprint.
Right. Now, that being said, it wouldn't surprise me if that does happen to come up. I mean, especially given with who involved and what's, the stuff they've been touching on. So
Sure. I mean, whether or not that becomes any sort of element here, because it could be that plays a part in the main numbered storyline. I hate to say it that way.
Yeah.
As opposed to the Last Remains numbered books. So we'll see where they're both out next week, actually,
That's
according
correct.
to the last page of minor solicitations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we might have mentioned that like last week or what the last book was. But that being said, though, to wrap this up, so tell me about this Barney Greengrass.
What is this Barney Greengrass stuff that you're talking about? I gotta rewind a little bit.
Apparently, this is a real place because Mary Jane mentions wanting to go to this Barney Greengrass place. Which led up to her being, I guess, being on the bridge in the first place, because she was telling her driver, I was like, yeah, there's a bagel with locks in it for you if you can get us there before they close. And I looked it up, and this place is apparently a real place.
I was about to say it didn't ring a bell to me, but
Okay.
it might be some place that Spencer knows.
It says it's a breakfast place, so I don't know. Yeah.
You got me. I was about to say, they're much like the rest of the country. There's always some place in your hometown that you just never go to because either it's a tourist place or it's just too far out of your way.
Right.
So,
and plus, you live in a big town, so it's,
I was about to say 541 Amsterdam. That's far uptown.
Yeah. So I was kind of curious about that. Like I had already went ahead and Googled it myself. Like, wait, is this a real place? And it was just like some made up place. Because there have been times where they've obviously New York is real in the Marvel universe, and whether
Right.
it was a made up Marvel universe place or an actual place that they've referenced, like they have, like Marvel has in the past with stuff. So cool.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't even bump on it really because I had never been there and never heard of it. So,
Sure.
But that's cool that that's a real place, and understandable that I wouldn't even recognize it because I don't frequent that part of town that much.
Sure.
But it looks like Bourdain has been there, so it's definitely hit the, it's definitely gotten some fame.
Sure.
It's a Jewish deli. So all right.
Yeah, it's like I said. Sometimes when references like that come up, I like to look them up just to like, wait, is that a real place or is not? But that's that. Cool. But that I think pretty much wraps up Amazing Spider-Man 51 LR, because there's really, honestly, like I said, without outside of the fact that it just kind of brought in a whole lot of stuff together, kind of folded in some stuff, or whether there wasn't much else to the book. And we'll see more on at least a couple of parts of it in the next actual issues. Well, in both actual issues that are coming up next week or whenever. That being said, you want to throw out a book?
A little bit of a curveball here. Do
Sure.
you want to touch upon Atlantis Attacks number 4?
Oh, sure. Why not? Hit it.
So, creatively, this is still written by Greg Pak, and this book, it's been off the publishing schedule for a while now, and there was actually some talk that this might not come out at all, at least in the retailer circle, back when publishing was getting back on its feet after the initial shutdown due to COVID. Atlantis Attacks was supposed to have been finished in the spring. This is one of those books that had gotten to the midway point just as the Diamond and resulting Marvel, the resulting publisher shutdowns went into effect. So it was tough to see this book take, such a long hiatus, but now it's back. It's also with art by Ario and Indito and Robert Gill. And you can unfortunately actually tell when the art team either switches or alternates pages. And it's colored by Rochelle Rosenberg, who's always on point. But getting back to the story, we are dealing with confrontations between Namor, the old and new agents of Atlas, and the forces of Pan. And it's revealed that, and what's funny is that before I get to the reveal, Mike Nguyen is definitely, speaking out of both sides of his mouth, trying to pull, trying to get his, trying to get Pan into a favorable position at every turn, trying to figure out how to make the situation profitable both for himself and for this venture that he's on. The agents of Atlas are kind of caught in the middle. One thing that I kind of am interested in is the reintegration of dragon lore into all of these kind of East Asian stories. So we've got the involvement of dragons here as well as in Shang-Chi.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense, obviously, but at the same time, it's kind of interesting that we are getting this as well as the Mandarin in the upcoming Shang-Chi movie. And we may or may not be familiar with the origin of the Mandarin's rings, but they are supposed to be of, I forget the alien, the full name of the alien race, but the Maculuans?
Something like that, yeah.
Right. But those are a race of dragons.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be, that actually got my anticipation kind of going in that direction for the movies. Like, I wonder if they're going to introduce space dragons into the Marvel universe through Shang-Chi of all places.
It's quite possible. I feel like they would have done. Well, maybe not.
Because of the Mandarin rings.
I know. Well,
it wouldn't be like a direct introduction. Be like, here's dragons.
But I'm just saying, I feel like there would have been a reference or something, if not even this then or somewhere, coming forward to that part. But I mean, that's not saying that they still couldn't do it. But yeah, I feel like that even in that probably there would have been some sort of reference somewhere going in that direction.
In the MCU at least,
right?
But yeah, I just think I think it's interesting that they're bringing that particular lore into the fold. But getting back to the story, that one dragon that had been the center of this particular issue of this particular event storyline that had been essentially revealed to have been kidnapped from Atlantis and taken to Pan. That particular dragon gets pretty much dealt with by Wave of all people. And when I say of all people, it's because no one, and I repeat this with some emphasis, no one believed that Wave was that powerful. And it's kind of a revelation here. It's a reveal.
I mean, I feel like in the Arrow backup story, there was some allusions to that.
Right, but this, I think, is the first full exhibition of this kind of power level.
Right. Because I feel like somewhere in there was like, yeah, when they were going through her history or whatnot, it was like, yeah, there was that. Like, and even she kind of doubts her power. So yeah, what you just said still makes a lot of sense. But right. It feels like at this point she's starting to come into it.
Definitely, and all of the things that were happening earlier in this series, like the different underwater peoples that have been introduced over the course of the story, the Serenas. It's kind of interesting to see that different factions of the underwater peoples being slowly introduced or reintroduced into the Marvel universe, making kind of expanding the characters that you can play with other than the Atlanteans, that are being ruled by Namor. I just wanted to mention that it's kind of weird to see Namor put his funky new costume on after his confrontation with the agents.
I mentioned that in my notes. I'm like, when did he have time to change clothes?
He just put them on.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, oh, hold on for a second. I got to get into my evil Namor stores, my emo Namor stuff before we go down here. But I was gonna ask you. I was looking up at your notes to see if you read Captain Marvel from this week, and it doesn't appear that you have it listed.
I did.
Okay.
And I didn't want to list it simply because. And I think I know where you're going with this, but what I was going to mention about Captain Marvel in general is that we are once again in a dystopian possible future.
Right.
And it's just this kind of recurring theme in Captain Marvel. And I'm like, really? Why are we doing this again? We're literally just coming off this in a previous version of the book, and they still haven't revealed exactly why she is doing this particular reality / dimension / possible future hop. So I know that the cover for this week's issue of Captain Marvel number 23 features one version of Namor, but it doesn't exactly jive with what's going on here.
Yeah, I kind of skimmed like the first couple of pages. I haven't been reading Captain Marvel, but I skimmed like the first couple of pages of it, just kind of saying like, well, what's at least some conceit for this to happen, but even then it didn't get to that point from what I read. But I'm like, okay, well, this ain't clearly, huh?
It's at the end,
right? Well, but what I was gonna say was
once again the cover doesn't exactly play out in the issue.
Yeah, which tends to happen. But what I was trying to say was that it clearly has nothing to do with this. But I was kind of curious if it did actually get to something around the line. But since I already had like I said, from what I skimmed from the first part, I was like, yeah, there doesn't seem to be a way that would tie into this. But I was just kind of curious. Right. But getting back to Atlantis Attacks, though, I think the only other thing to kind of mention about this before we move on is that apparently Jimmy Woo has to kind of come clean on some stuff, where it's his role in some dealings going on here. More specifically with the dragons, the aforementioned dragons, and which that, if I'm not mistaken, that whole thing, I feel like that's the thing that's been kind of a thing with Agents of Atlas, correct? Like there was the whole dragon thing, like that's been a while, and I know this has come up in past issues and whatnot, and even outside of my own little, kind of going through the wiki and seeing what's what, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I assume part of this issue kind of made me wonder, was like, well, okay, we know this is the penultimate issue. There's, the end of the issue is kind of is going to be a fight, clearly, or something's going to happen because of what happened at the end of this issue with Amadeus and Mike Gwynn. But like, I'm kind of curious as to whether, and I don't even know why I'm thinking about this, whether they're going to try to tie this into King in Black some kind of way.
Well, because they're going to tie everything into King in Black, obviously. Yeah. Part of that, remember what I was saying earlier about the delays. I'm fairly certain they delayed this book so that they could get it more solidly tied into King in Black. Mm. That's my suspicion. Obviously, they did not get to the point where they're going to solicit the cover for number 5, but it looks like the cover for number 5 has been, this is pure speculation on my part, has been redone to reflect a more clear tie-in to King in Black.
Of course.
It's and just a quick note before we move on to our next book. What happens to Amadeus at the end of this issue was surprising to me.
Yeah.
Did not realize that Mike Nguyen would have access to this kind of tech and would be able to, run this particular contingency plan into effect. So it was a little bit surprising to me, but that's what cliffhanger pages are for.
Right. I don't Yeah, I can't say that it was that big of it was a surprise that it happened, but I can't say it was a surprise to me that that would be a thing that could happen. I mean, obviously, Pan being a what it is as a technically advanced city of a sort, it would stand a reason why he would have some more, some more tech prowess than just what he did with the city. So, and and his guards and everything else. But yeah, that's being that. So we can move on to another book. I guess we'll do one more before we hit rapid fire, and I guess we can do Avengers.
That's cool.
Avengers number 38. So, in lieu of what I have in the news section later on, I'm just probably going to go ahead and mention that in a minute. But basically, as far as my notes are concerned, like I like how T'Challa tries to recruit Moon Knight and just like, yeah, you kind of did some things here, and if you want to make up for it, why don't you join the team? and of course, Moon Knight's like, no, I don't think so. You can go to hell. And then the rest of the issue is pretty much about them dealing with the quote unquote hell of a situation they got going on with Mephisto.
Oh no!
But also kind of bringing together the other parts of the other parts of the stories with the Baby Star brand, and particularly the Phoenix Force, who's now come back into play and is kind of off in the distance from Avengers Mountain, being watched over by Thor and Blade, and them talking. And again, and even get a nice little appearance. Well, a nice little appearance by Iron Fist for some reason. Well, not even for some reason, because we know that although that kind of ties back into the 1 million BC stuff, which again, this issue kind of goes into tying all that stuff, and including the Mephisto stuff, which I'm still not. That the end of this was still kind of like really, but tying all that stuff together, going into whatever's going to happen with the book, going forward with this part. We find out that Mephisto's pretty much been in the ear of every major villain the Avengers, much less the Earth, has had to deal with. And also it kind of, I feel like even in that reveal, kind of goes back on, or kind of goes against a couple of things. Like we see Apocalypse showing up, and like granted they show Apocalypse fighting a version of the Avengers, but
one of the events we understand.
Yes,
one of them, the very first one that's teased, even though we don't recognize the very first appearance of skinny Thanos.
I know, right? I was like, oh Lord, it's Cosmic Ghost Rider all over again.
Right. That was a pretty funny, and I'm not completely spoiling this, but it was a pretty funny appearance. But one of those, obviously, we know is based in comic book history, just not necessarily at that particular time period.
Right, and there's another particular one that's steeped in Avengers history. It's more like that. Also, that whole thing kind of goes against, because if you know how the Avengers were formed, and you know what the catalyst was, and potentially who the catalyst was at that point. But now this is suggesting that there was another catalyst that wasn't the one that we knew it to be.
Right, but obviously,
or at least part of, I should say.
Right. What I was going to mention is that that's not the first time, so that might have been another time that happened. I don't know if that happened when the team, because if I'm not mistaken, what Roddykat is referring to was actually orchestrated by Loki.
Correct.
And I don't recall if, and obviously this is us relying on costuming being portrayed by McGinnis, Morales, and company on this book. Just to do a quick recap, it's written by Jason Aaron, the art by Ed McGuinness, and ink by Mark Morales, and colors by Jason Keith. We're relying on the depiction of character costumes here to give us an idea of when this happens in Avengers history. So to see Mephisto's retconned involvement in this, it's kind of interesting to figure out if this is what we understood to be the episode when Loki is involved, or if it's another one. So
well, see, and which brings
it's a different. Yeah, I was about to say it's a different way. It's a different retcon if it's one or the other.
Well, it's. I mean, further thinking about this, it could be both. But at the same time, around that time, what we know to be in the formation of the group, and particularly this character that Mephisto is in his ear of, already kind of had a mistrust of humans because of this, because of their dealings with them. So, I mean, I say that it slightly kind of goes against that, but it also at the same term kind of goes along with. Because it kind of does it in a way it was like, well, if you go back and read those old issues or even old issues of this character's book, it could be pretty much any time. And even in the pages of Avengers, now that I remember, reading a couple of those old classic issues, the first couple of classic issues where he's involved, like that was a kind of a thing that was mentioned. So like I said, it could go both ways, but it's still, at the time when I first read this, it was like, well, that kind of seemed like it goes against it. But like I said, it was also like, well, given that character's history line, it could very much go with and against,
right?
Based on how that character was portrayed at the time.
I mean, we're literally going back to the first two issues.
Exactly. So it's not outside the realm of possibilities, but at the same time, it's still kind of weird.
So
right. So that part was still kind of weird, but nevertheless, the Apocalypse stuff I still stand on, because it was like, well, we know, especially given recent, what's going on in X corner of the books, which I'm sure we'll probably get to in a minute or two. Having Mephisto in Apocalypse's ear saying, "Hey, this is a thing," when we know from recent issues of the X books that there was a whole other reason that probably could also play into it, but like they do is just slight enough to feel like it feels off, but at the same time, it's kind of like it could still fit. Now you would think Apocalypse, being as old as he is, would recognize Mephisto for what he is, but
right.
that doesn't even matter at this point. So that little nitpick aside, the rest of the issues pretty much like, here's them trying to get the puzzle pieces together and not unlike the Spidey book, kind of folding everything in together and probably bringing it back to the 1 million BC stuff. And apparently whatever's going to happen with this Mephisto storyline.
Right.
And that definitely cover is one of those misleading covers, which I should also point out.
Right. At least in terms of what's supposedly depicted,
right,
is definitely misleading, but it definitely lets you know that this is going to further the Mephisto storyline that is in the Avengers book and has been for a little while, and definitely gets followed up on in a major way. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is the long history of Mephisto's involvement in the lifetime of a certain family that gets a visitor. Rewind just a half second. And I read this character's family name as a play on Trading Places. I don't know if you picked up on that. It's not Winthrop. I read that as Winthorpe.
Winthorpe,
and I was
yeah,
like,
I can see that.
because it's an amalgamation of character names from Trading Places.
Hmm.
And I really got a kick out of that. I thought that was a nice little Easter egg that Jason Aaron put into the story, and it made obviously perfect sense relating to the the character storyline that was intertwined with Mephisto in this book, and how that character, or at least that family of characters, gets tied back into what and there's a certain family member related to a current Avenger that is, I don't think we've spoiled this as of yet, but
Right.
it's probably worth catching up on if you want to figure out what's going on, so we won't spoil it. This particular Avenger family member is, at least right now, at least for now, being teased as having a role with Mephisto. So.
Right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is not the first time Mephisto and this other character has been played together, correct? Especially in the Iron Man books. Because I feel like, wasn't that like a storyline in a fairly recent...
I think that's what's being teased. I think that's where all this is. I think that was more Avengers. I think that's earlier Avengers. This has been going on for a while now.
Because I felt like that was something that was in the Iron Man book that was kind of a thing, but I don't know because I wasn't reading it at the time. So,
I mean, we always joke about how it's easy to forget because we just read a lot of these books, and it's easy to misplace some of these facts. So, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that we're just relating back some of the things that have popped up in the Avengers book.
Maybe,
if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know. Like I said, I will probably do the thing all about that because that was something that I was curious about. I was like, well, this is not the first time that this character and Mephisto has been, in the same place at the same, mentioned in the same place and having to do with this person. So who knows? But regardless, the one last thing to say about this issue is that we do, as Agent 70 has said previously, we do get to see some events. In Avengers history, including a couple of future ones. Well, at least one future one, having to do with not the next Avengers that we know of, but I guess another version of the Avengers. That I guess. I don't know what to say about that one, but it's like, yeah, we kind of get a next Avengers like team up, including a Krakoan with the Phoenix Force, who apparently is still around, or assumingly that is him and not his son, which I doubt. But at some future point, going against Doom the Living Planet, and I was like, I would actually kind of read that because that makes sense.
Yeah,
like Doom took over Ego the Living Planet and is now living his life as a metallicized head floating in space. I'm like, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. But that being said, that is it for Avengers 38. Unless you got something else you want to.
Nope. We can bring it to rapid fire if you want.
We don't want to. Sure, yeah, why not? Because I don't know if that was that much in the X books to kind of.
Yeah, I was about to say we can do those together and quickly.
Yeah. All right, hit it.
Spinning it up.
All right, rapido fire, cuz. Yeah, I'm probably gonna say that for the next few weeks. I don't know why, because there's no Fast and Furious to speak of, except for in the clickbait section, which you can read the one story that is in there about that.
I was about to say I could understand if it was Ejectocito, but
it's play on that, so why not?
That's funny.
You wanna go or?
Sure, I will go ahead.
I know we got some stuff in common.
There's certainly some books here that we read in. We both read that we can discuss jointly. The first book I will talk about is Batman number 102. This is written by James Tynion IV with art by Carlo Pagulayan, who did way back in the day, who did Planet Hulk and lots of Hulk stuff that people have circled back to recently, with inks by Danny Mickey, who we all know as a former member of the Image inking slash art team. So in this book, we immediately go into the aftermath of the Joker War, and we have a new character and yet another retcon into Bruce Wayne's past. A new character introduced called the Ghost Maker, who is connected to Bruce Wayne and his years of training. I will leave it at that. So, yet again, a retcon into the history of Bruce Wayne in his path, or while he was on his path to becoming the Batman. Next up is Black Widow #3. It's written by Kelly Thompson with art by Elena Casagrande and colors by Jordi Belair. I know that Roddykat read this.
Yep.
I would just say that the two Avengers, or at least the two erstwhile longtime partners of the Black Widow, are struggling with what to do in this particular situation. And analyzing what's happening to Natasha, and they are set upon by yet another, relatively recent supporting character for Black Widow, who drops a bit of a bombshell on us when it comes to where we find Natasha currently and where she's been for the last supposed 2 or 3 months under the spell and captivity of Arcade. So it's interesting that we get that reveal. You may see that in a spoiler article or two online. I definitely did see that while I was checking out, I believe, Newsarama / Games Radar at some point last night or today. So I definitely saw that. I can say that Elena Casagrande's art, at least in several really cool sequences in this, really shines. I really was impressed by some of the stuff that she put into play in this issue in terms of combat as well as storytelling. Really was impressed by that.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, I mean, this other widow that pops up is a long time, not, and it's not surprising because they're pretty much almost everybody that has shown up has been some form of friend or foe to Natasha. And by the way, I'm just gonna henceforth during the course of this the rest of this book call her Charlie Nattermore, as in Charlie Baltimore, because this pretty much. Part of this is playing out like Long Kiss Goodnight as far as that part of her is concerned, but that might be reset at the end of this issue. That being said, because one of her foes that was supposedly dead, and I don't know if they're going to go any way to explain that part, who really has a hard-on for revenge, decided to flip the script and go against what the plan was.
Right.
Causing said reset, I guess, and causing her to go full Charlie Baltimore. But outside of that, I almost was like, because when the part when she was fighting, I was like, she took out 3 guys with a pencil, but it was a hanger in her case, and it wasn't like that case because she did end up using up some sort of stuff. So like, yep, because I almost put it in my notes.
Like that. I was about to say, I really liked how that was. Mm-hmm. I really did, because those little inset panels was a really fine touch. That was not something I was expecting to see, especially in a 2-page spread like this. That's why I really made note of the storytelling. Yeah, it's not really, and the art is beautiful to look at, and obviously the colors make it even better. Mm-hmm. But I would definitely credit Elena Casagrande with her storytelling ability here, and that she's really telling so much in these panels, which could just be gratuitous splash pages, but they're not, and that's what's awesome.
Indeed. Moving right
All
along.
right. Next up for me is I'll talk about the slightly out of order so that we can keep two of these stories together. Miles Morales, Spider-Man number 20. It's written by Saladin Ahmed, art by Marcelo Ferreira, inks by Wayne Faucher and Ferreira, and colors by David Curiel. We circle back to Miles and the Prowler. In this case, now Uncle Aaron. You know, that's not that big a spoiler because, come on, people, they want to make some synergy between the comics and whatever movies are out there, right?
Yeah.
You know, because Hobie's playing a different role now, but Hobie Brown, that is. But in any event, back to the story, we get more Ultimate Universe shenanigans. And for anyone that thought that the Ultimate Universe was going to be an afterthought, we perfectly know now that that's not the case, because Ultimatum, the 616 Miles Morales, is definitely making a play to make himself the only Miles Morales in the 616.
But we still don't know if that is the case, going to be the case for the Marvel universe at large, but definitely in this corner of the universe.
Say again?
I said we don't know if it's going to, like you were saying, you know, be a far-reaching thing in the universe at large, but or in this corner of the book, or just this corner of the Marvel universe, rather.
Right, but you know, in terms of the Ultimate stuff,
right,
and obviously this is the corner of the Marvel universe that would have the most connection to it, because this was the carryover character, the main carryover character,
right,
from the universe. So, I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that I need to mention other than it's Miles, the Prowler, and an amassing of forces from characters that have played guest starring roles in this book up until now. That includes Starling, it includes Cap, it also includes Bombshell. You know, it's like let's get the gang together in terms of all the superpower types that have shown up in the series to date. So they're all massed together to try to take on the threat of these. And it's weird because before we move on, well, at least before I kind of wrap my discussion on this, it's weird to see this version of the Green Goblin. It still is. You know, I didn't read Ultimate Spider-Man that closely, so it's still, to me, very weird to see this version of the Green Goblin, knowing what's happening in current Amazing.
Right. Yeah, I kind of felt that same way. Yeah.
With our Norman, it's weird to see all of this happening, seeing all this happen. You know, like it's. I understand why they would want to keep it apart, because Spencer and Rosenberg are telling their own story in Amazing right now. So, but yeah, to me it was a little weird.
Yeah. Also, and I will say I'm kind of upset at myself because I totally forgot to pull this book, because I would have absolutely read it had I remembered to pull it. But
I'm sorry for.
No, you didn't. You didn't. You're fine. No, you're fine. No, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, I was about to say that was really the crux of what happened in the last issue. It's really just a continuation of what happened in the last issue, and this is a case where the cover really does tell you a lot of what happens in this book.
Okay, right.
Speaking of another book that has a cover that is definitely informative, is Thor number 9, written by Donny Cates with art by Nick Klein and colors by Matt Wilson. This is a very strong contender for Click of the Week for me. And shout out to Binge Mode. They dropped their they're doing their binge on the MCU, and this and today they dropped the Thor episode. They dropped it this morning, and I listened to it during the day. and they actually mentioned this issue based on its solicitations, because it's no secret, based on the cover and based on the solicitations, that Dr. Donald Blake makes his return to the Thor universe in this issue. It's if I recall, if I'm not mistaken, they mentioned that in the solicitations, and obviously it's on the cover. So the binge mode folks, shout out to Mallory and Jason. They mentioned the Easter egg in the first Thor movie in terms of the Donald Blake name and name tag, really, that shows up in the movie. But this issue brings Donald Blake back into the Thor universe in the comics, and goes into where Donald Blake has been, and it ties into what's been going on with Thor recently. I had to actually check the wiki again to see the last time we saw Donald Blake and to see where he's supposed to have been. So this isn't a complete follow-up. This isn't a straight up follow-up to where Donald Blake has been, but definitely is related to the last time we saw the character. So it's not a complete change to where we last saw the character, and now we see where the character has been, I guess, relatively recently, and it's not it's not an understatement to say that it's kind of a cool twist. It really is. I don't think Roddykat is up to date on Thor.
I am not, but this, knowing that Donald Blake is coming back into play, having seen this, I'm like, I am kind of very much curious to catch up and check this out.
I will tell you that you don't really need to have read
Sure. Okay.
any of the first 8 issues to kind of pick this book up, knowing that broad strokes, there's an idea of what's going on in this book, right? Especially in the wake of the costume change and the role change as the Herald of Galactus for a few issues. That's not necessary to know, really, when you pick this book up. So you can actually pick this up and just kind of go from there.
I will not be slamming down my cup of tea for that statement, but good.
It's okay.
But I was gonna say real quick, because something I forgot from the Miles stuff, is that if you, like me, chuckled when Agent 70 said Miles and then Prowler, we are on the same page, and I appreciate you. Good.
Oh yeah.
Because it evoked another character that has nothing to do with either one of those characters.
It's funny.
Never.
So, I think I'm done with Thor. I'm just scrolling through just to see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. But yeah, it's a really, I have to be honest, it's a really interesting take on the Thor comic book mythology.
Okay.
And the canon. So I definitely would recommend this. It's a definite candidate for Click of the Week for me. Next up for me is U.S. Agent Number 1.
Oh, I'm surprised you didn't do the other Kate's book, but okay.
What's that?
I'm kind of surprised you didn't do the other Kate's book.
I was just going in order because I didn't want to lose place with the X books.
Gotcha.
Because I wanted to keep them together.
Yeah.
U.S. Agent Number 1, written by Christopher Priest, with art by George Jeanty, inks by Carl Story, and colors by Matt Miller. We run into one John Walker, who has been decommissioned by the U.S. government, and he's out there on his own with, I'm not sure what he's doing. I'll be perfectly honest. Like,
whoever knew.
No, that's true. It's true. So it's funny that Priest ties together several things going on in the recent Marvel history, including the dismantling of S.H.I.E.L.D. and some of their leftover tech and leftover bases around. There's a lot of real world analogies integrated into the story. lots of lots of things that make my head hurt, but unfortunately don't make anybody else's, don't make enough people's heads hurt in the world, because some of these people actually believe this stuff, and that's obviously what Priest is playing with. It's fun to see that the U.S. agent is not running around with his vibranium shield and is constantly complaining that he's going through them way faster than he can replace them.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I don't know if you were finished with.
I was about to say, I would just add the reveal at the end ties into something that John Walker's been dealing with all issue. At first, I thought it was Sin, the Red Skull's daughter, but it's not, because if I'm not mistaken, Sin has already been exposed to something that would give her a Red Skull. So that was a little whatchamacallit, that was a little disconcerting even, because it also made me think it was Diamondback. So it took it took me a second to really see how they were going to pull this back into what had been going on in this first issue.
Sure. The only thing I was just gonna say was, like, I kind of skimmed this issue, and much to my I've said this before, I don't like U.S. Agent, but I also like Priest writing. So this one kind of tore me up a little bit.
I'm supposed to like U.S. Agent, which is funny.
Yeah, but it's, even when he was with the wackos, I was like, I hate this fool. But it was worth reading this. I mean, it was worth skimming this issue just to see him get his ass handed to him in the beginning, in the first part of his book, by this person he ends up meeting, and running around with.
Right. I mean, obviously there's some racist tropes that get played on, and I kind of chuckled to see Priest throw them right back at John Walker, which was cool.
Yeah. So anyway,
next up, crossover #1. This is an Image book by Donny Cates that Roddykat thought I was going to roll into, but I am saving the X books for last because I know that we'll probably both have something to say about it. This issue has been teased in our news as well as solicitations as a possible multi-company crossover. And obviously when we're talking about Image, it's a publishing imprint that covers several companies, going back to its founding between Wildstorm Studios and Extreme Studios and Top Cow and whatnot, and they've gone on to replace Wildstorm with Skybound, the folks over at Robert Kirkman's shop, and and obviously they've published several books on their own. This I mean, when I say on their own, in conjunction with the creators, and that's obviously the point of Image, that it's creator owned. This book is proposed to be a crossover between several companies. I presumed that meant between, Spawn, Top Cow, Skybound. I think that's where we're going to end up going. But what's interesting in this issue, and it's only the mildest spoiler, that Superman is cited almost, I don't know, every other page. And I'm pretty sure this is done with the blessing of Warner Brothers and DC Comics, because there's no way this would have hit the page. There's no way in this day and age of people eager to litigate and protect their intellectual property that this would have happened without permission being granted. So it's interesting to see where this might go in the next issue, because it is heavily featured. That character is heavily featured. In terms
I feel like
not the imagery, but the name.
Right. I feel like they've done playful, both Marvel and DC have done some playful, mentions of others' characters in a way, shape, or form at some point.
This is more explicit. That's what's interesting. If you decide to take a peek through this, which I
Oh,
recommend.
I just did. Yeah, I just did. I saw a couple of them.
Right. It's really more than just a nod and a wink, which is what we usually get.
But I'm saying,
So-
I know there's been I feel like there has been a fairly recent reference to Batman in a Marvel book, by name.
Yeah. Right. But this is far more. It's like every other. Not. I'm obviously engaging in a bit of hyperbole when I say it's every other page, but it felt like it was coming very often as I was reading the book.
Enough to be notable.
So-
Gotcha.
Oh, definitely. And the last page, cliffhanger page, is definitely something that makes that even more notable, even more so. The last books that I would recommend that I would mention are the two Ten of Swords books that are out this week. The first one, in order of Ten of Swords reading, is X-Men number 14, written by Jonathan Hickman with art by Mahmoud Asrar and Lionel Yu. This is a meeting between Apocalypse and Genesis, aptly named, obviously. These are former husband and wife from their days on Araco, and we get a real lesson into how we have come to this point. I'm still not sure. I don't think I've yet to get my hands on the Ten of Swords handbook. I don't know if you've read it or if you went back to see the origin of the Twilight Sword.
Yeah. In fact, I think going into reading this issue, I kind of did a quick wiki because I knew, like you, knew where it came from, Searcher, and and from that part of the universe. But
This
it
is a
didn't seem
different
like
sword,
it had
right?
anything to do with it. Didn't well. Let me phrase that. They didn't explicitly say anything about that in this issue, but
Right. I mean, my understanding is it's a different sword because the Twilight Sword that Surtur wields in the Simonson books is gigantic.
right.
So it makes sense that it's not the same sword, but
Right.
it's so off-putting that they would name another sword the Twilight Sword.
Or it is, and there's going to be some kind of way they're going to, they're going to flip it some kind of
But
way.
they shrunk it exactly.
Yeah.
Did they shrunk it somehow? We don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what this issue is. It's really a recap of the history of Araco, and we've gotten some of this already with with some of the other Ten of Swords books, but this is, I think, the most complete retelling
Mhm.
of history, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds legit. Yeah.
All right. And the last book I'll mention is the following book in the Ten of Swords reading order. That's Marauders number 14, written by Jerry Duggan, Benjamin Percy, art by Stefano Caselli, and colors by Edgar Delgado. This is another strong candidate for Click of the Week because this is essentially the eve of the tournament between Araco and Krakoa, and it is a dinner hosted by Saturnine and I picked up on this, and I kind of laughed when I saw Wolverine actually say this, or at least think this, that the pigs are being fattened up for slaughter, at this dinner before the contest. So we get a little bit of foreshadowing in terms of matchups. We get a little bit of foreshadowing in terms of who is thinking tactically and strategically about what's coming up.
I did
And
like
it's
that
pretty
part.
interesting to see.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see the development of Ilyana Rasputin, aka Magic, and seeing how they are putting that character far more front and center in terms of her role as a combatant and as a tactician and as a captain of the Krakoan forces.
Mm.
It's nice to see her being promoted to kind of pushed up into a role of prominence in this case. You know,
Right.
and this has been going on for a while now in the Hoxpox continuity. But it's interesting to see that they're even taking that a step further in these Ten of Swords stories.
Right. And even on that note, because it's also good to see her, you know, them, you know, using her tact or using her as being tactful, because you know a lot of times, especially in these last few in this the Dawn of X stuff, we've pretty much seen her saying like, all right, I'm ready to fight, just charge on into battle. And granted, and it wasn't up until Empire actually, you know, and even then she was kind of like, all right, let's just hit stuff and let's go. But even then she was kind of, you know, we've seen more of her thinking tactically, even, you know, even when being impatient and just wanting to go attack stuff. But yeah, it is great to see that part of her kind of coming more about, you know, than just her wanting just to run out and hit stuff with a sword, which is, you know, not always a bad thing either. But there's more to it to it than her than that.
I mean, interesting to see that she, you know, she's obviously far more than what I remember her. And obviously, I'm not the biggest New Mutants expert. I almost always saw her as the teleporter, and it's different to me to see her expand from being the teleporter and magician to someone who's actively at the front line.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, because most of the time we've seen her, she was definitely a teleporter, or when some stuff happened in Limbo, she becomes the demonic form with her soul armor and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's
The
pretty
dark
much the two
pile,
stuff.
yeah.
Right, exactly, and that's pretty much the two sides that we usually only ever got to see of her. So definitely this expansion of her is really good. As far as my stuff on this, I was just going to say that as far as Marauders is concerned, like, yeah, that is some menu.
Yeah.
And because I was reading this, I was kind of making notes, and I was like, well, I guess we'll see what Wolverine is planning in his own book, or not, especially when you read the last page of the book.
Yeah, I'd say that's an interesting cliffhanger.
Yeah, kind of a dumb move, also.
Yeah.
But also, you know, as they just said, they were sizing up the competition at dinner, and I kind of like that part. Like Storm's actual dance with death as opposed to the figurative ones that's been going on for years. And also going back on that point with Wolverine, like, I don't know, did it seem his logic seemed a little flawed on blaming Brian about the whole thing? Like what?
No,
like,
because I did.
I don't see how that could have been. Like, I get it because but I don't think that would have stopped
I've definitely
it, though.
been thinking this.
Right.
I have.
Weird.
I'm just like, really, Captain Britain?
Hey, look, you know, shout out for sticking to your morals, but I'm like, I don't think even if that had gone down, it wouldn't have changed anything. It wouldn't have done anything. She would have just gotten what she wanted and still done this.
Possibly. That's definitely. Listen, you I think have a better grasp on the Saturnine character. It's still off-putting. It's off-putting to me to see Roma acting this way after being introduced to Roma way back in Fall of the Mutants.
Right.
And I'm like, wait, she's not as benevolent as she seemed back then.
Or even when she was in Excalibur.
Well, I thought maybe they were playing off of what happened to her character development in Excalibur, so I'm not sure. Oh
yeah, probably, but you know, like I said, some of that stuff is still kind of I have forgotten a lot of some of that stuff that had happened in that book, but like they really didn't really give Roma that much in this one. But,
right. No, but in terms of just her characterization, you know, about how the way she is described in the side matter and in captions by Tini Howard and Hickman in the main descriptions of these books. So
I feel like that well, yeah, those descriptions are probably some that are probably more important at somewhere that I don't remember reading, but yeah. That being said, let's see, that was it for that one. But going back to the X-Men stuff, yeah, the whole Apocalypse and Genesis history is what it is. But also all that history, and I'm saying this again because I feel like this is maybe the case. that some of this is probably going to reflect on future stuff, and is probably a parallel on current. Well, probably blatantly a parallel on the current state of Krakoa, because some of that history stuff kind of seems way like what's how the state of Krakoa is right now. You know, so and it's like maybe, as they tend to say, the history repeats itself, and maybe this is pretty much the catalyst for that. And also, I don't know if you noticed back in the X-Men thing, but go if you got it on, you check page 22 in the last panel. If you got it. X-Men 14. And check the last panel, just page 22, because I feel like there is a shadow or a silhouette of a thing that we've just talked about in a recent book that is in that panel, or maybe that's just the way that thing looks. But yeah, we definitely get the explanation on why Arakko is marching to Earth, and that every time that I see them mentioning Annihilation, I keep thinking Annihilus and the event, and I'm like, I know good and well that they're not tying that stuff into this. They're just basically saying Annihilation.
Right.
So,
you know, it's unfortunately, you know, if you are as, you know, admittedly well read as we are in comic book lore, especially, you know, during the pandemic, now that Roddykat has read Annihilation, it's weird to see these names repurposed, like Twilight Sword, you know.
Right, because that would be a real bummer if it's like suddenly Annihilus did show up and was like, "Hey, I was the one that was behind some of this," which wouldn't make any kind of sense.
Exactly. I doubt that highly, but it's
like
that it's weird to see the name being repurposed.
Right, like all of a sudden Annihilation comes while they're fighting. I'm like, wait, what? Really? But that's, I seriously doubt that's going to happen. But also, I feel like there's part of this is like this is as much fantasy as that last run of Black Panther is to sci-fi. Just putting that out there, especially in the pacing of the story. But
yeah,
you know.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that.
But in the case, did you see the page I'm talking about?
I'm not sure. When you say page 22, do you mean in the PDF?
Yes.
Okay. So.
Yeah, because I don't think as far as I know the pages won't match up physically.
So we're talking about the shadow.
Like last panel, you'll see you'll see
left of the panel.
Huh? At
the shadow on the left of the panel.
At the last panel, look at the kind of near the top. You'll see a figure that looks like the Phoenix, or maybe that's just me. I don't know if you see it or not. And I would show it, but I don't want to. We don't want to go.
No, exactly. We don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't see. I was about to say I don't see it. We're talking about X-Men, right?
Yeah, X-Men 14 on page 22 of the PDF. There's like you'll see in the last panel, like you'll see at the top of the last panel, you'll see something that almost kind of it kind of also looks like the Rebel Alliance symbol from Star Wars, but it also looks like the Phoenix. And I don't know if that was intentional or that's just the way that looks. And I didn't know whether you noticed that or not. It's probably, don't even worry about it.
We're talking. I was about to say we're talking about. Oh, I see. In green.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. My instinct said that was just, you know, this energy formation, this portal.
Just the artistic style, sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I saw that. So.
Yeah, but I looked at that and I was like, wait, is that has something to do with it? Because we know the Phoenix Force is still around, so it's not like, you know, it's not outside of realm of possibilities that they could incorporate that into the X Corner, as we're apparently going to see in Avengers next month.
Avengers, right?
Yeah, so But regardless, I just saw that and I was like, I was curious about that. So we can go ahead and move on. I don't know if you have anything else or that was it for you.
No, that's it for me.
Okay. That being the case, we'll go on to my books, and we'll start off with Star Wars number 8. We find out how Zara ended up being on the one to hunt down the rebels because there is another, and she continues to let her grudge against Leia go straight to her head, possibly to her own detriment at some point, but not in this issue. Meanwhile, Luke, Lando, Chewie, and Shara Bay defend against the Imperials in space, and kind of open up a big W for the Rebel Alliance against the trap that they had willingly gone into. Oh yeah, and the Wedge is in here too. Zara, quote unquote, chats with Leia while toying with her, which kind of likens it to her Wrath of Khan moment almost, like the way that whole conversation was kind of going on, and the way she was toying with her was kind of like in the way Khan was doing Kirk.
Khan!
Yeah, without that part happening. But so yeah, she apparently was she was playing around with her food and not eating, and then caused her to, not to do the thing she set out to do. But apparently she did, according to what she told her subordinate. And I thought this whole thing was going to go a whole different way. Regardless, next up, The Rise of Ultraman number 3. Wait, is that? Hold on. Yeah. Okay, want to make sure that was, issue number 3. Shin wakes up and finds himself in USP headquarters and wanting to look for Kiki. But Muramatsu, who's in custody, finds Muramatsu, who's in custody. Meanwhile, Kiki's dealing with a kaiju and a doctor who may have some information that she's seeking. Ultraman gives Shin the limitations of their merger, and they transform for the first time, going against the same kaiju that Kiki was up against. And the doctor that she was also seeking to find kind of make a choice in what happens, or what his freedoms are at that case. Let's see, he's moving right along. Transformers number 24. Wheeljack and a small crew of engineers try to save the moon that they were on after the tether crashed. Huffer is still the optimist, I see. Termigex apparently was an engineer, according to Illusions in this book, and tried to get Wheeljack on her side. So Termigex was pretty much the founder and leader of the Decepticons, who are now being led by Megatron and turning into the Decepticons in this whole thing right before our eyes. And I wonder who Cosmos was thinking about, which had me think about an old episode of Transformers that had nothing to do with him. So, but nevertheless, it was whatever it was. Wheeljack apparently was Gears' mentor, it seems. And this whole issue was an elaborate setup to yet another miniseries in the Transformers universe. So, yay, I guess. Because apparently at the end of this book, it said, to be continued in Transformers Escape or whatever it is. And then the next book is going to be, looks like the start of the war between the Autobots and the Decepticons, it seems. But we'll see when we get to that point. Speaking of Transformers, My Little Pony Transformers number 4. I believe this is the last issue of this book. Actually, it is the last issue of the book, especially how it ended. But the Insecticons invade Applejack's farm, and she has had an in-game moment thanks to Discord. And the inevitable final big battle erupts again. Spike, not that one, in an exosuit, cute. And there's a one part in it where you can kind of sing You Got the Touch, because of course as Pony and Autobot leader come together in vanquishing the Decepticons and whoever the bad guys in My Little Pony, is kind of happens off, and then they leave on good terms, and the Cybertronians get back to Cybertron. To which causes Optimus to blast the space bridge that took him, but it sounds like, thanks to Soundwave, there may be plans for another sequel to this crossover at some point. This was a weird but slightly cute miniseries, obviously geared towards younger kids, but there was just nothing in here to be like, huh, that's actually kind of amusing the way some of the things played off in this miniseries. So if you feel up to it, check it out. I don't know. Last but not least, Mighty Morphin #1. So I will go into this saying that I have not been keeping up with the Power Rangers books as of recent. I know there's one book that ended to go started into this one, so some of this book is kind of taken up from some of that stuff. Which means that we are pretty much in season 2 or season 2 or 3 of actual Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the show, because we find that Tommy's in a White Tiger Zord armor, armor, and then of course we have Rocky, Aisha, and Adam in the fold, and I guess the like Jason and them had already left, maybe in the previous issue, or maybe in the previous volume of the one of the Power Rangers books. And it seems that there's a new Green Ranger around, and it's not Tommy, but we don't know who it is. But although I have a sneaking suspicion of who it might be, even though I haven't really been keeping up with the book, because there's a character that kind of comes up in the that had been coming up in the beginning of the old books that it could very well be, and I think they alluded to this character might have been a possible recruit for the Power Rangers. But regardless, this self-same character is someone, if it's the case, the self-same character is one that Tommy don't really care too much about because of this character's dealings with Kim. But anyway, we also get a little history on pre-disembodied head Zordon. And again, this character, like I said, Tommy doesn't really like this character because of his ties to Kim. Also, Skull's girlfriend is not what she seems. May have something to do with Zordon. And also, well, like I said, I make my prediction on who the new Green Ranger might be. But yeah, there we go. So, also, if you've been into the Power Rangers books, something to catch up on. But it seems like, again, it's something that is kind of going off of stuff that's already been presented in the last volume of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the book. So you'll find yourself scratching your head as to why some of the things is going on in this book. And that is it for me. Clicks of the week. And we already got a couple of clicks of the week from our erstwhile partners here. We have Sweet Tooth, The Return, #1 from Dirt, who apparently says that it's a click of him because he avoided solicitors like The Plague for the last few months and forgot, and didn't even know that one of his favorite series was returning. And now after reading this, he's freaking out and trying to figure out what's happening.
I've heard good things about this series, just never tried to jump into it.
Sure. The weird thing about it for me, as coming from video games, is like I think Sweet Tooth, and I'm thinking Twisted Metal, which is a video game series that had the. So I'm like, I don't think this has anything to do with that. I'm fairly certain it doesn't.
Was that the clown truck?
That is correct.
Oh my god, I can't believe I remember that.
But yes, that is absolutely correct, and I'm fairly certain that has nothing to do with this. And for Tim, it is Avengers 38 for him. He says lots of foreshadowing for next year, which, yeah, there's some truth to that. And that is it for them. Do you have yours?
Yeah, I was in between a few books. I definitely liked the Marauders book this week because I liked some of the character development in the book, and I as much as I don't believe in what happens is going to stick, in terms of what happens on the cliffhanger page, I think that's going to stick at all. But I definitely just like the overall story told in the issue. I liked how they featured Storm.
Yeah.
but I think I'm gonna go with my gut reaction and go with Thor #9 because I really enjoyed what they're doing with Donald Blake.
Great, which means now you got me more curious about what that actually is. Excuse me. Well, for myself, I think I'm just going to go ahead and go with the Guardians because that was definitely a particular good week, and yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with everything that Agent 70 said about Marauders. I mean, I was also would give a nod to Black Widow for this week because of that 2-page. But yeah, definitely going with Guardians of the Galaxy #8 for my click. And with that, can we get an ad read, please?
First ad read of the night is for Blue Apron. Blue Apron's meal delivery service. Fresh ingredients and incredible recipes delivered weekly to your door. Skip the grocery store and make incredible meals at home with Blue Apron. Always shipped free right to your home. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can get $30 off your first Blue Apron order. To place your first order with $30 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Blue Apron link and sign up for your first order. Blue Apron through cspn.us. Do it today. And now we go into the news.
And as we do, we start off with cinematic news. But first, we're actually going to before we get into the news, we're going to talk about a little something. So if you have not watched The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 1 yet, we're not going to necessarily spoil it, but we will talk about it. So
I'm gonna ring the bell just in case.
Yeah.
So feel free to fast forward for anyone listening, or to just put us on mute if you're watching live on video right now.
Needless to say, just like a lot of other people, I was going to say that I enjoyed this episode. It was glad to see this thing back, you know. And I think after watching it, I think I already had the title for this here episode of the show of Comic Book Chronicles. So, which was probably one that I should have had like when the series first started. But that's a whole nother situation. If that ends up being the case, then you'll know what I'm talking about. Yeah, like I said, I'm trying to think about what to say without spoiling. I actually took some notes.
Well, I mean, I was about to say, I took notes too. It's funny that we're both consulting our notes, right? You probably typed yours. I wrote them out because I'm old school in that regard. But with lightly, kind of dancing around spoilers.
Yeah, there's going to be some
understanding what's already been revealed through episode trailers and images and whatnot. The very first thing that popped in my mind is that Timothy Oliphant has good hair.
I mean, and it's not surprising to see him in a western, in a sci-fi western type situation.
Or western, right? At least a western type situation, because I'm not that well versed in his work, but I understand that he played a sheriff type.
Right.
And
Justified,
Deadwood, and Justified. Right. So this is not exactly a departure from him. It's actually more of a playing to character.
Well, he also played Hitman, a Hitman in the which is a video game character, but it's, the name stands for itself because he was a Hitman in that. So yeah, so he's done some different. But every time I've seen him, he's like looked real different. Like he's one of those characters like kind of Carl Urban, where every time you see him, he's kind of looks just different, with the exception of probably recent stuff. But you know.
Right. I didn't even realize that was him on The Office.
Who? Timothy Oliphant?
Yeah, he was in The Office for a couple episodes.
Oh, really? No shit.
Mm-hmm.
I never really watched Office like that, so.
I mean, this is something that I tried to watch during the pandemic, so it's relatively fresh in my memory. But I'm pretty sure I fell asleep here and there in a couple episodes, so there might be some things I forgot, in terms of episodes. But going through his IMDb, I just kind of laughed when there's a scene where Oliphant has to take his helmet off, and like I said, we're mildly spoiling things. He has to take a helmet that he's wearing off, and I'm just like, man, he didn't no helmet head. No helmet hair.
I know, right? I'm like, how do you in the world?
You got good hair, man.
I know, right? Like, what kind of product do you have?
I said good hair.
Right.
Because when I saw that, I was like, really?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Because like, what kind of product are you using that holds up, even like holds up under that kind of helmet? And granted, obviously behind the scenes, he probably didn't have it on for that long. But even then, it doesn't take like all the matte down hair. So
exactly. I just laughed at that. I was like, really, you got good hair, man.
So, but yeah, I had that same issue. Yeah, I had that same issue. I didn't write that down, but I thought that was something that was going to stick with me anyway. But we definitely got some references in this going back to Return of the Jedi. But just to kind of pick on what actually happens in the episode, obviously after he's been, and he says this a couple of times in this episode, which is kind of funny. He's been quested to take the child to take Baby Yoda back to his people. Which at this point is like, well, wait, is his people the Jedi or his people whatever race that Yoda is, or Yoda and Yaddle are, which I assume would probably take him back to well, it won't take him to Dagobah because that's not where they're from. Regardless, that is the question which may or may not be answered during the course of this whole thing. But he ends up going back to Tatooine, and I saw some chatter online about that happening from a couple of comic creators, including one Charles Soule. Well, yeah, no, he wasn't necessarily a part of that, but it was like Jim Zub and Charles Zub, because like Jim Zub had retweeted about basically going back to Tatooine when there's other planets and you can make other planets, and Charles Soule was like, okay.
Well, they even mentioned. What's funny is that they even mention it here. In the episode, they're just like, "What? I've been there. There's nothing of that. Why are we going back there?"
Right.
So that was pretty funny.
But that being said,
I mean,
yeah,
I feel like I've said this before. I felt like I was, living through another Dune episode. I think I said it for the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I've never really watched Dune all the way through, but I was like, are we in a Dune phase now?
I mean, by virtue of being Tatooine, probably. I mean, there's, sure.
Right.
Like one kind of came before the other, but still, it doesn't. I see why I know definitely why you say that, because of what happens. Was especially with what goes on in this episode. But but yeah, because he's tasked to take the Mandalorian's tasked to take Baby Yoda back to his people, whichever people that may be. Which I actually called it funny because in the recap, and we talked about the recap before, because the recap's talking about goes back, kind of mentions some lines that was said in the previous season, that as Agent 70s want to say sounds more like D&D than anything else, because of the fact that he keeps mentioning that he's been quested to bring the child back, and they talked about the Jedi as a race of sorcerers, which that's not necessarily the case, but so I see what they're doing there, but it's kind of funny to just kind of have it picked up on like that. But regardless, he ends up going back to Tatooine and ends up trying to find another Mandalorian, which, if you know of the other Mandalorian in the Star Wars franchise that has anything to do with Tatooine, you will probably know who will get referenced. And sure enough, that does happen in this story without giving it a whole kind of way, and even we may possibly even have seen the person at the end of this episode. Go ahead. You gonna say something?
I was going to add, the character that Timothy Oliphant plays is actually not a new character to the Star Wars universe.
Right.
It's actually someone who's been introduced in the literature, in the novelization.
Right? Was it an EU character or was one of the newer ones?
One of the newer ones, as of 2015. So
Gotcha.
It's definitely one of the newer ones. So, because I was curious to see where this character. To learn more about this character and come to find out that this character is not new at all.
Right. Which actually kind of brings me to that point, like real quick, and I won't belabor it too much. So, like, yeah, I've seen a couple of articles about how "quote unquote" important this character is to the Star Wars. And I don't believe that he really is, because I also kind of did a nice little search on the character about him. Like, yeah, sure, he's something. He's been around for a minute, but whatever. I'm like, I feel like
important as a side character. You know, like one of the more, you know, like depending on what part of the Star Wars universe you're looking to dive into.
Sure,
you
but
know, if you're Jedi focused, not that important.
Well,
you know?
I mean, even with or without that, it's like, oh, whatever, it's just some random human white dude or like whatever. But I think the more important character in this one was Joe, who not necessarily was, you know, I want to know her story because she just don't, but all she just does this one thing and we never see her again. But nevertheless. Like there's a story there that I feel like that's probably more compelling than this dude's story. And that's just me. But yeah, but on this quest, like I said, I do love the fact that the Mandalorian, which I think we've seen before, he knows Tusken, and that kind of comes into play a couple of good times, including the Tusken version of ASL that is used heavily in this, and how the ignorance of the humans that are involved, kind of makes things good for the Tuskens in the end, without spoiling that part about it.
Right.
But basically, the humans in the small town and the Tuskens have to work together to get rid of this. Some say quite notable reference from Knights of the Old Republic, and probably a couple other places in the EU and whatnot, and even going back to again the aforementioned Return of the Jedi. Because of a couple of references that that may or may not play directly into each other in this, but basically the Mandalorian and this Cobb dude turns into monster hunters for this one episode, and some things may or may not have been learned by the humans, because I think I say in my notes, like, I leave it to the dumb humans to want to cause more trouble despite causing it in the first place.
Of course. What I laughed at was the fact that they actually made the Tuskens finally fleshed out characters.
Yes.
For the entirety of and forgive me, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, I am not well versed in Star Wars literature. Just not. I've never picked up any of the literature that became the extended universe, not picked up any of the literature that has been used to fill in some of the gaps since Disney took over Lucasfilm. But you know, it's something. There's something to be said for seeing these characters who have literally been just rando snipers in the desert on Tatooine, you know. Rando, you know, people who are just out there. The Jawas are given more characterization than the Tuskens. So it's interesting to see that they are far more sympathetic than they've ever been now on screen, and you know, it's informative, and it makes you think back to the last time that they were even mildly sympathetic, because all we have to think of is the women and the children too.
Yeah, I going on that, I definitely like how the Tuskens are portrayed as, you know, not the evil scavengers as they've been portrayed in the past. Like, yeah, because they even make a point of like, yeah, they are raiders, but like they're not gonna do anything that without provocation either.
Right.
You know.
And they're harsh. I think, isn't that what they say, that they're harsh or something like that?
That it can be.
Yeah, there's something along those lines.
Yeah, but they're not. But yeah.
Right, and in relation to what I mentioned earlier about the women and the children too, you know, there's lots of sand in this episode. I hate it. It gets everywhere.
Oh, damn it. You just could. I was hoping he wasn't going to go do it, but yeah, here you go.
Lots of sand everywhere. It gets into everything. Anyway,
I feel like also going well past that, there's probably going to be at least one article, and I'm going to see if this bears out, or maybe because I'm saying it might not happen, but there's probably going to be one article that alludes to some sort of pod racing or pod racer,
right?
Thanks to Cobb's speeder. Yeah,
I noticed that too. I thought of that when I saw the articles. Like, oh yeah, maybe. Without spoiling the entire episode, I would just say that if you're looking for Moff Gideon, nowhere to be found.
Yeah, except for in the. So here's I'm gonna tell you real quick what I did. So I watched the recap for season 1. Didn't necessarily need to. I watched the recap that is on Disney Plus before actually watching the episode. But apparently you don't have to because it's right there, right before the episode, like you would expect it to be in a situation like this. So I basically watched it twice.
Gotcha.
But that's pretty much the only time you're going to see Moff Gideon, which I guess we'll get some side news on Moff Gideon later in the thing.
Right.
But,
and last in terms of the non-spoilery stuff, John Leguizamo makes an appearance here as a voice character, maybe under a lot of makeup.
Yes, that is correct.
So when I saw his name in the credits, I was like, "What?"
So I'd kind of been right because I had kind of been I kind of been spoiled on that because of an article before going into the episode because I had just watched the episode like earlier today. But what was I gonna say? I probably wouldn't have picked up on it at the time, not because of the fact that because I had a heater on because it was cold this morning. So I had to. So I was pretty much like I normally do, watching with the subtitles. Like I could hear him, but I couldn't really tell if it was him or not. And plus, he was under a lot of makeup, so that was, that kind of does something to the voice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
he's not foreign to the idea of voice acting. But what's funny is that I think he's in Ice Age. Is it Ice Age that he's in? The animated movie?
It's probably one of them, if not all of them. Yeah.
He's in one of those. He's in one of those animated film series, and his voice, at least, the affect that he put on his voice in that character, you can still tell it's John Leguizamo.
Right.
So in this case, I had to listen pretty hard. So that means he was definitely putting on a lot of style. And like you said, maybe he's under a lot of makeup, which affects it too. But yeah, I was definitely taken aback by seeing his name in the credits in order of appearance. I was like, "What? Right. Where was this?" And I was like, like going back.
Right, because even if you think about it, you think about like let's say Nick Nolte, when his character was still in play, like you would have probably not known it was him right off the bat unless you listen really hard, and even then, I'm like, that was kind of a hard tell at the time, unless you really knew what he sounded like recently.
I was about to say, but his voice is far more familiar off the bat.
I guess.
Far more familiar off the bat.
Yeah. But again, and especially if you're of a certain vintage, yes. But even then, like I said, that would have been like, you like, is that him or is that whatever? But regardless, So there is some of that still kind of comes into play, and with the makeup and whatnot. But nevertheless, that is the thing that happened. So what else we got going on in this? I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, I can go into some
spoiling
stuff.
Everything, right?
Yeah, like I can actually say there were some points in here that I kind of liked, like some little things, like that whole part when they their first plan that they put in action with the Tuscans that didn't go the way it was planned.
Right.
If you remember that was kind of a funny part. The bantha teeth hygiene, that part was kind of pretty. I don't know, little stuff like that. It was kind of funny. I like that. Again, the reference, especially the first reference from the Star Wars series proper. I guess probably actually from A New Hope that we see when he gets to Tatooine, which was pretty cool. Let's just say that there is another bot that has survived. That
kind of moving slowly.
Yes, it's lacked motivation. Some would say. But apparently, I read about that, and apparently that was purposeful. I'm sitting there like, really? because I went back and read the wiki on this particular bot, and I'm like, or this particular droid, and I'm like, really? Is that a retcon, or is that how that was originally supposed to go?
That's funny.
Yeah, but regardless, yeah, like I said, there are references to other points of like I said, there's a reference to Return of the Jedi in here that were pretty neat in dealing in what they end up dealing with at the tail end of this thing. And like I said, the Tuscans come out good because of the bounty they get from this thing. The only other thing that was kind of weird to me, and I don't know if you noticed it or not, but notice this was a small ass town, right? Like this was just a little podunk old mining area that wasn't even on the map anymore. But they had enough explosives to take down, you know, as I say in my notes, take down
because it's a mining camp.
Right. Yeah, but they still like, okay, if they even then it kind of seems like, well, that's a lot of explosives, even if they are this poor. Like, granted, some of that's probably came from what Cobb brought to the table also. So I got that part. But even then, it's like there's a lot of ordnance just for them to be sitting on if they're this poor.
Right.
So, but outside of that, it was a great episode. I enjoyed it, and again the reveal at the end that some stuff going into this is referenced, especially with what the character of Cobb was holding on to through the majority of this episode, is a great reveal. Which I'm pretty sure that's out there now, so you may or may not have been spoiled on it at this point already. So we wouldn't be doing any more than what's already out there, but we still won't do it,
all right,
just in case.
And shout out to I believe his name is Ludwig Göransson.
Yeah, the composer for the
music. Right, the person behind the music for the show. I won't lie. I always get a kick out of hearing that music, and I'm like, it's almost Pavlovian at this point.
I don't know if you saw. I don't know if
you're just like, oh, okay, I'm down for the show now.
Exactly. I don't know if you saw it, but there was a pretty good clip or a GIF. Well, it was a kind of a clip where had a part of Lilo and Stitch. I don't know if you remember Lilo. Have you seen Lilo and Stitch?
I have.
So you remember the part where Lilo and Stitch kind of goes into Lonnie's bedroom while she sleeps and wakes her up with the record player? I don't know if you remember that. So basically that scene gets played out, but when Lilo puts Stitch's finger down on the record player, it plays the Mandalorian theme. And she keeps opening up his mouth and it keeps playing that. I was like, all right, I don't know whoever did that. That was pretty great.
That's pretty funny. All I have to hear is dum.
Exactly, and that's what you hear. You hear that, and then you hear a little bit more when he opens up and closes his mouth. It's pretty cool. I have to look that up and send it to you.
Pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But yeah, it's Pavlovian at this point for me, at least. As soon as you hear it, just like, all right, it's Mandalorian time. I'm down. You know. So, all right, cool. So, there's a couple of news stories here. Related to the Mandalorian. Take it away.
We'll start off with the Mandalorian actor Carl Weathers reveals Greef's ulterior motives in season 2. Now, granted, Greef doesn't show up in this episode except for the recap or whatever. The last time we saw Greef, Carl Weathers and Cara Dune, Gina Carano, they had just helped the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda escape from the clutches of the evil Moff Gideon. The pair, nor Gideon, appeared in season 2 premiere, which we just said, but we do know they will appear again in the series going forward. Speaking to Breakfast Television Toronto, as reported by Screen Rant, Weathers sees his character arc going forward, as well as an upcoming episode he has directed. Oh, nice. The actor said that we can expect Greef, and so editing, folks, editing. Good gracious. The actor said that we can expect Greef to be having, quote unquote, having fun doing what he does, being duplicitous in season 2. He pressed further for more details, Weather added a little more. I personally like the fact that he doesn't divulge a lot about himself, because I think in some way, the less you know, the more interesting you are in knowing. That's actually kind of true. And Greef plays things pretty close to the vest, so I think we, in the episode I directed, Flex. We hint that there might be some ulterior motives in Greef's desires and what he's after, his goals, and I personally think that's more than enough. Now, granted, we know this character. We pretty much knew this character had some things going on, and we knew he had some, you know, he's got some motives of his own in what he does. Like that became apparent, you know, when he was even introduced. So this is not that big of a surprise, but it's good to know that we'll get to, you know, I guess we'll may or may not get to see what that's all about in this season. Also, I don't know if you noticed that most of the majority of season 1's episode were like between 35 and 40 minutes, and this was close to an hour. So
I didn't notice because it just seemed to move.
Right.
Because they're doing a lot of stuff.
Right. Like even the season, like even season 1 stuff, like as short as those episodes were, they kind of felt like an hour, even though they weren't. But like you said, they moved in enough that you didn't even matter, that you didn't worry about it so much. So, and that seems to be continuing so far. Another episode later on. But anyway, next up.
All right. Next up, big spoiler warning here, ringing the bell. Well, again, for The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian Season 2 premiere features a major Knights of the Old Republic callback, the BioWare-developed video game.
Which I already referenced, but yeah.
What's that?
I said which I had already referenced when I was...
right. So, if you're familiar with that game, a lot of the things that happen in this episode are callbacks to some of the tasks that you have to undertake in that video game. I did not play Knights of the Old Republic like that. So
I didn't get to that point though. Yeah.
Yeah. So I may have touched it once or twice, but not like Roddykat said, to the point where there are a couple of tasks that are very, very familiar. If you see them in this episode, it's definitely pretty. It's a pretty clear parallel.
It's actually direct, especially with what they end up doing in The Mandalorian in one of the their initial plan that I alluded to is pretty much something that happens in the game. Didn't necessarily go the same way, but yeah. So you end up pretty much doing the same thing you're doing in the game, but with your party of 4 and not like a half a dozen people.
Right.
As the Mandalorian did. Anyway.
Well, more than half a dozen, but yeah.
Well, yeah.
I think that's all that remains, though. I think most of them get wiped out.
I mean, we didn't see more than half a dozen at any given time, but they definitely, there were more little rocks on the ground than
right.
than was stated. You have to watch the episode to see that. But yeah, so I already mentioned the Great Dragon. The Great Dragon is pretty much the thing that we're talking about here. So, and that is also a thing from Knights of the Old Republic, which is this article is talking about. And there you go. And of course, we saw it in, we saw the bones in A New Hope. So, there we go. But it also ties again to something that's in Return of the Jedi, which was all I found amusing. Anyway, next up. The Mandalorian Season 2 premiere features an unlikely link to Return of the Jedi, like I just said. This also, just to paraphrase this article, and not to spoil some of those parallels, because that is something you might want to check out for yourself. But we definitely get, I don't know, they're acting like we haven't seen Weequay before, but we haven't seen too many live-action Weequay. Like we've seen them mostly in Rebels and Clone Wars.
Right. I was about to say animated we have.
Right, exactly. But live action we hadn't seen too many, but there is also that. And of course there were some, I believe if I'm not mistaken, there were some Weequay at the Sarlacc pit when in Return of the Jedi. So that is also another thing. But like I said, won't spoil the rest of it, because there's a couple things you might want to that get alluded to that actually kind of confirm. I can't remember if it was a long-running theory or if it was one that actually played out in a EU book involving a notable character. And that's all I will say about that.
Yeah.
Next up.
All right, next up, The Mandalorian teases who might have found Fennec Shand in season 1. This is more spoilerific territory.
Yeah. Also, going back to season 1, obviously, because of where this character comes in, and I almost went back and watched this episode to recall that, but I didn't. But yeah, we won't go too far into this because it basically there's a couple of people who show up in this effort, one more prominently than the other. May or may not have been to find the body of one Fennec Shand, played by Ming-Na Wen.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Watch the episode, folks. Next, they don't necessarily allude to that, but I think this article was just like I don't think they ever said anything about her or that. But I think this article just drew this conclusion on its own.
Right, and it's definitely a big hint.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's a big callback because you're trying to figure out what actually is happening in that scene on Tatooine.
Exactly. Right. And
So-
they just kind of left it because we thought it was
it is.
something that was going to come back during the course of the season, but never does.
Right.
Last on the Mandalorian front, and I will go ahead and put this in here because I thought it was cute anyway, so we could just kind of put all that out. Mandalorian Baby Yoda oil painting joins London's National Portrait Gallery. So apparently, and I had to make sure that this was actually a real deal or just as some kind of, whatever. But apparently that did actually happen because I've seen a couple of places picked it up. Not saying that couldn't have been a hoax, but anyway, a Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian oil painting joins London's National Portrait Gallery. The hype has been growing exponentially for the highly anticipated second season of the Disney Plus original series. The Mandalorian season 1 was a hit with time. We already know this. I'm trying to figure out. So visitors to London's National Portrait Gallery from October 30th to the 31st, which apparently is already gone at this point, so boo. But visitors of the gallery will be able to view an incredibly detailed Baby Yoda and Mandalorian oil painting titled The Mandalorian and the Child. The painting will be a part of the Mandalorian-themed display, which also includes original concept art from the show. Fans have to act though, because like I said, it was October 31st, which is over with now, so you missed it if you were in London and didn't get a chance to check it out. But according to The Hollywood Reporter, the oil painting will hang beside portraits of other famous Star Wars figures, including Sir Alex Guinness, which I'm assuming in full Obi-Wan gear. So, yeah, there you go. That was the thing that happened. It's a little late now, if you were trying to go see it, but I don't know. I'm kind of curious as to where that painting is now. Moving right along. I guess we're gonna wrap back around to the beginnings.
Yeah, because that is the end of the Mandalorian news. So, in the big, I hate to call it big news. Sean Connery, the Scottish actor who originated the James Bond character on film, died peacefully in the Bahamas on November 1st after a long illness. He was 90. His son, Jason Connery, confirmed the news to the BBC. Famous for his dashing good looks, strapping physique, and abundance of charisma, Connery was the first actor to portray Agent 007 in film, starring in 7 entries in the franchise from Dr. No to Never Say Never Again. He was also an Oscar winner for his supporting turn in Brian De Palma's The Untouchables, his sole nomination from the Academy, and he received 2 BAFTAs, including an honorary fellowship award. He was awarded a knighthood in 2000, and he named the dog Indiana.
Actually, and yes, and also he puts one of yours in the hospital. You put one of his in the morgue.
There you go.
From the Untouchables. Also played in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is also based, if I'm not mistaken, based off of a graphic novel. But a lot of people like to forget about that movie, which
it was his last
wasn't
film.
great. Yes. And of course, I know I'm pretty sure somebody brought up Zardos at some point in time during the course of this, but because that's a thing that ends up happening. If you don't know what Zardos is.
Also, I was about to say, and also welcome to The Rock.
Oh yeah, I definitely wasn't going to go too much farther without mentioning that. Yeah, because apparently I saw a story. I saw another story. Speaking of that, talking about he was pretty much yelling at Fox or whoever it was to give Bay more money so he could actually do what they wanted with the movie. And I was like, yeah, I kind of believe that if that actually happened, I kind of believe it.
It's funny.
So, but yes, and I also believe that at the end of it, I saw reports that he was suffering from dementia.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That's a sad way to go.
Yeah, and having had experience with having a loved one with dementia, yeah, that's it is a not great thing to see.
Yep.
To have to experience, and I would not wish it on the person or anyone around them. That being said, like I said, rest in peace, Sir Connery. Next up, though, on 007 news, Lashana Lynch confirmed as I want to say new 007 and not the new 007, but I've also seen reports of she's going to replace, I think even this article says, but regardless, it's confirmed as the new 007 in No Time to Die, which has been long speculated. Because even this article, as it says that the news was confirmed in a recent interview with her from, I believe, Harper's Bazaar, if I'm not mistaken, in which will make her the first ever female 007, which is great. But even this article said that it's not necessarily been confirmed by, she's confirmed it, so that's kind of credence enough in a point. But it's also article goes so says is that, and I don't know if this was just the article saying this, that she is a 007 and not necessarily may or may not be replacing James Bond, who is also in the movie,
right,
as the 007, but who's also
who's
coming out of
on his way
retirement.
out.
Exactly.
So, that's something that's understood by anyone who has followed what's been going on surrounding No Time to Die and Daniel Craig. So
exactly. So if it is definitely true that she's becoming the 007 going forward, I'm all for it. And I'm just going to put this out here real quick. If you follow or send any news or one of these fools that out here that frequents a place like, and I even hate to say the name, but Bounding into Comics, you're a comics geek asshole. I don't want anything to do with you because they have some really terrible takes, and you're a fucked up person. Period. I don't care if you do it willingly or quote unquote unwillingly. There's no way, because if you saw the headline that they put on this, it's like,
yeah, I'm not even gonna grant them a click. So,
yeah. Like, I only saw it because I was doing, I was trying to find, because originally when I found this, I wanted to, do a Google search to see if there was more confirmation on it. And I just so happened to see them come up in the listing. I'm like, you assholes.
I believe it.
Anyway, next up.
I believe it. Next up, Gorillaz, the movie. This is Gorillaz ending in a Z. Alternative band Gorillaz are finally set to produce an animated movie, and it looks like the project is heading to Netflix. The news was revealed by Damon Albarn, who heads up the band, while specific details largely remain elusive for the moment. The musician did tease that the movie will be abstract. Okay.
Yeah. Because that's totally unlike the Gorillaz music. So, and not surprised. I'm kind of surprised they haven't done so before now, because I know weirdly enough, there's been a long-running theme and lore to the Gorillaz. Some of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but, it is what it is.
I mean, part of me, honestly, I'll be honest, part of me is just like,
who? Really?
But I do recognize the name.
Oh, man, you should check out
Never heard their music.
I think you would like, especially like their first couple albums, because there's definitely some hip hop influence, and I think you would enjoy it. But yeah, so again, this doesn't feel like that because of a surprise that something like this would eventually happen, and surprised it hadn't happened before now. And I know they've been putting out videos for stuff like this article says. So cool. I like the Gorillaz. They're good. They got some good music. And there's no word on when this is gonna happen, if it ever happens, I guess. Yeah, not really. So, okay. Next up, Peanuts fans petition to bring Charlie Brown specials back to broadcast TV. And as Agent 70 said last week when I told him about this article, it's a bit late, and it is, because Apple's already got their hooks on it. So, and normally both of us are pretty much like petitions, like these stupid conspiracy petitions are dumb, and you could do better things with time. I'm kind of almost on board with this one, even though it was already too late, admittedly. But that is because being of a certain vintage and having grown up with the Peanuts specials every year, going into adulthood is a sad loss. There's really nothing else to say about that. Next up.
All right. Star Wars Rebels. A little bit of a Star Wars story here. Star Wars and I kind of agree with this.
Yep,
Star Wars
same.
Rebels made a huge deal about B-Wings and then abandoned them entirely. I remember this. This was a big deal when whatchamacallit, Hera is on a quest to and funny that we're always going to use this term now. Hera's on a quest to find the latest weapon to add to the Rebel Armada, and Mon Calamari, who's devoted his life to developing a starfighter that was armed to the teeth without sacrificing speed and maneuverability, seems to have developed one, and it is the B-Wing, which was never all that impressive in the movies because they decided not to feature it. It was cool in the episode, but then they never really focused back on the B-Wings again. So
it did show up during Rise of that last Star Wars movie, whose name is I can't remember, and it's shown up a couple of times, but not prominently.
Right, and not piloted the way Hera does it. So,
right.
And doesn't feature. What it is that because of the B-Wings features, it probably took a little bit more to animate in the in the whatchamacallit, in the first in the first trilogy. So you never really saw the B-Wing do all that much because the way they animated in Rebels, the way Hera flies, it was like, oh yeah, why isn't that more prominent
right
in the starfighter battles that we see in Star Wars? But I think due to movie making limitations, at least back then, there's a reason why they were never really featured,
I guess. But it is worth noting, which I knew in this article, goes on to say that we definitely have seen the B-Wing in actually we have seen it in the comics for certain. We haven't seen it as much in comics, but we have seen it. And in fact, as recent as this week's Star Wars, I'm trying to remember, there might have been an actual B-Wing in that, because there's a whole page or a whole panel where Luke is trying to help out the other rebels, which I forgot to say earlier, but whatever. Help out this other rebel section, get their starfighters out from the hangar. So they were basically trying to take up the flag to help in that endeavor. And then we see the panel of a whole bunch of X-Wings and A-Wings, and I think there might be a couple of B-Wings in that section that just kind of all flooding out. And it was a really good panel. It was really nicely done art that comes out. But I don't remember seeing if there was a B-Wing in that number. But nevertheless, we have seen them in comics. We've seen them in video games, because I think Squadrons, the recent Star Wars games, definitely has a B-Wing in it, if I'm not mistaken, or at least references it, or it's probably somewhere in there. But we definitely have seen them in other avenues, just not the live action stuff so much. But yeah, I almost put this in the clickbait section, but then I was like, you know what, I feel like this is good enough to put in the news section, and I'm glad that Agent 7 agrees with me about this.
Right.
Because it was a thing. I'm like, why did they just bring it up and just like dropped it just that quick? Anyway, next up though, Lego Star Wars Holiday Special trailer sees Rey meet Baby Yoda. I don't know if there needs to be anything else to say about that, but the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special Part 2. I'm gonna say it's Part 2. It's not a Part 2 because it's its own thing. Got its first trailer on Thursday, revealing how Rey will time travel through major events in the saga, including Luke Skywalker's run on the Death Star and a moment with the Mandalorian's Baby Yoda. The special hits Disney Plus on November 17th and takes inspiration for the infamously bad, this is the article writer's words, and I can corroborate to say, yes, anybody who's ever seen it can corroborate this, infamously bad 1978 holiday special, which feels very old to say, but I am old. It says it kicks off with Rey and the rest of the heroes celebrating Life Day, which is the thing. It says Lando gets a sweet cape. And in the wake of Rise of Skywalker, which is the movie that I was trying to think of, before the Jedi gets a mysterious crystal that sends her on a cross timeline adventure. So you can watch the trailer at your leisure because it's out there. Next.
All right, next up, the fan favorite X-Men the Animated Series, at least to some fans, is available to stream. Yeah, that's me mildly hating on that animated series.
Not so
That's
mildly.
Because it was disappointing. So
It really
it's available
wasn't.
to stream in its entirety on Disney Plus, and the premium streaming service has heralded its arrival with what it has dubbed an unofficial official trailer recounting Marvel's merry mutants assembling to protect the world that hates and fears them. The trailer is drawn primarily from the show's opening season. As Jubilee is brought in by the X-Men, Professor Charles Xavier is seen leading his students against Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Which we really didn't get too totally much of that during the course of the 5 seasons that I remember. Like, yeah, we've, bits and pieces here and there, but not enough as the at the opening would suggest. And by the way, I'm gonna say again, if you watch it on Disney Plus, it's a all out of order, and there is a chronological guide out there if you're so inclined. And actually, this article mentions that. So there you go. Next up. Marvel teases more story to come for Ant-Man and the Wasp's Ghost. Marvel teased that Ava Starr, a.k.a. Ghost, a.k.a. Hannah John Kamen, which, by the way, if you haven't seen Killjoys, you should. Great show. The anti-hero in Ant-Man and the Wasp could have her own story explored further in a future story. Please don't kill Bill please
Bill
don't
Foster.
Bill Foster. Please don't kill him.
I was
Anyway,
about to say, Roddykat forgot his actually
because I'm thinking of a couple
mantras
different
of the show.
Because I'm thinking, yeah. Go ahead. What'd you say?
No, I said you forgot one of your mantras for the show.
Yes, because I got for some strange reason I'm thinking of one too many bills here from what reason. But yes, a recent post on Marvel.com breaks down Ghost's history in her debut film, beginning with her bracing introduction to Scott Lang, Ant-Man, Paul Rudd, and Hope Van Dyne, Wasp, Evangeline Lilly. Then peeling back the layers of her tragic backstory involving a deadly accident, which saw her into a state of molecular disequilibrium, granting her the ability to phase through walls. While also leaving out the part where she's an Iron Man villain, but that's fine. A lot of things have kind of didn't go the way you think it should in the MCU, but that's just me. Regardless, this article is postulating that this story could be Ant-Man 3, which doesn't have a release date, or it could be something possibly entirely different. We don't know. So it says here, it also is unclear if John Kamen will return for director Peyton Reed's third entry. But there's also rumors abound about the potential inclusion of Kang the Conqueror, which we've talked about. Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man 3, which we've talked about previously. Mm-hmm. So, but we don't know if there's any credence to that. So we'll see what happens. Next
up, Titans has released the first official look at Jason Todd as Red Hood in the upcoming third season of the DC series, with seasons 1 and 2 debuting on HBO Max, having debuted on HBO Max November 1st. A teaser video for Titan Season 3 was shared on social media, which quickly flashed Red Hood's name on the screen before revealing the October 26th date for the reveal.
Yeah. And if you're watching the video, you can see looks like a mock-up of the actually this might be the actual concept art for the Red Hood, which I feel like we may have talked about before, because of the dude that's playing Jason Todd was making comments about it, how good it looks. Also, and actually, the side thing is reminding me of something that I think we might have forgotten to mention in the Mandalorian talk. But I think also it was something that was in some news we had from last week in the clickbait section. There's been references. There's potential references to maybe Sabine Wren being also showing up in the Mandalorian 2 as possibly, as speculated by some graffiti that shows up in the course of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know if that's true or not. Anyway, next up. Justice League star Ray Fisher denounces Joss Whedon's statement. So yeah, this thing is still ongoing between Ray Fisher's claims against Joss Whedon and treatment and whatnot on the set of Justice League, and apparently Joss Whedon's people came out with a statement recently to which the actor has responded to in this article. We don't necessarily have to go into all of that, those both either statements, but if you are so inclined, you can read it in the article in the show notes. Next up.
Alrighty, next up, Animorphs book fans.
Who?
Rejoiced when it was announced that the series was going to get a live action film under Scholastic and Step Up producer Eric Feige's production company Picture Start. Catherine Applegate and Michael Grant, who co-wrote the original book series under the pseudonym K.A. Applegate, were also attached to the project as creative voices. Unfortunately, the writing duo recently took to Twitter to announce their exit from the project over creative differences.
So yes, Agent 70 showing his vintage here, because as I've come to find out that Animorphs is more of a 90s kids thing. Because while I remember seeing things about it, I don't think I ever watched the show or partaken of anything of it. And I'm fairly certain this is not going to have anything to do with the graphic novel that we talked about that is still going on. So 90s kids rejoice, I guess. I don't know. Star Trek Discovery Season 4 officially begins production. And I guess there's spoilers in here for Season 3, Episode 3, but we definitely won't be getting into too much of that. But we will only go so far as to say that, the showrunner Michelle Paradise, alongside Alex Kurtzman, has confirmed on Twitter that Season 4 began filming on schedule. Paradise shared the news just after paying tribute to the writer's room on the show, who she said has done a fantastic job of pulling the scripts together from home during the pandemic. She also mentioned the work done by the crew in pre-production to ensure that sets are safe for filming during the pandemic, saying, "It's been a lot." And of course you can see the tweets in question in the article. So, and there's also a theory about the apparently the troll that's on the show could be a callback. Like, I think Agent 7 might have actually alluded to himself, not knowing unknowingly, that it could be an allusion to the Dax symbiote from Deep Space Nine. So there's a theory going around about that. I don't know. I haven't seen the show to know for certain, but it wouldn't surprise me one way or the other, though. Honestly, because I mean, there are trills that show up left and right. Well, not left and right, but there's trills that show up. But that's the one of note. So, wouldn't be surprised. Now we will turn ourselves over to the comic book section, to comic book news. And we start off with DC Future State. Immortal Wonder Woman #1 teaser shows off the new adventures of Nubia. And this article is a first look into that book. It says writer L.L. McKinney has released a teaser image by artists Althea Martinez and Mark Morales for their Nubia story, which appears in DC Future State Immortal Wonder Woman #1, which I still get a kick out of that name because, Kinney is also the author of the upcoming young adult original graphic novel Nubia, Real One, which depicts a teen version of Nubia finding inspiration from Wonder Woman. But it sounds like it is it is unrelated to immortal Wonder Woman's Nubia story. So there you go. Wait, does it say when that comes out? January 19th, when Immortal Wonder Woman comes out. Which I believe we will also find out will be the Brazilian Wonder Woman's entry also. So cool. Next up,
a new team of legacy heroes called Teen Justice will make their debut during DC Future State, the 2-month publishing initiative kicking off in 2021. According to Screen Rant, Teen Justice hails from Earth 11. Oh God, Earth 11, and will be introduced in an 8-page story for Ivan Cohen and Eleonora Carlini's DC's Very Merry Multiverse in December. The heroes of Earth 11 consist of gender-swapped heroes originally introduced in Grant Morrison's The Multiversity Guidebook. Teen Justice's membership includes Aqua Girl, Supergirl, Robin, Donald Troy, Clarion the Witch Girl, and Jess Chambers, a.k.a. Kid Quick, a gender-fluid, non-binary Flash. Okay.
yeah. And I don't know if you mentioned the Supergirl, but yeah.
Yeah, I did. I ran through the whole gamut.
Yeah.
I didn't name their names, but yeah.
No, yeah, it's not. Yeah. But yeah, if you're watching the video, you can see the sketches of all of the characters. They look all right, sure. I've found myself already interested in Future State leading up to this, and I'll probably check this out. No Green Lantern, sadly, but and no Teen Lantern at that. But sure, they're going a whole new road. From the death metal corner of DC, DC's mystery god may be key to restoring the DC multiverse. And this is a spoiler for Dark Knight's Death Metal Rise of the New God #1, which is already out. And it appears that, the circumstances caused by Dark Knight's Death Metal has pushed most of the DC multiverse to the edge. No, it's not just a multiverse, excuse me. Almost every reality has been destroyed. That doesn't sound familiar. Almost all of the heroes have been wiped out, and there's only the machinations of the empowered Batman Who Laughs left to play out. However, there might secretly be a way to restore everything. Secret Wars. Oh, wait, sorry. The Chronicler just proved how powerful his people are and potentially set upon a way to restore the DC multiverse, even if the Darkest Night succeeds in wiping out all creation. And yes, I know this whole creating multiverses thing is a DC thing before Secret Wars, but whatever.
I was about to say, this is our patron hero, the Chronicler.
Yes.
So when I saw the name, I was just like, really? The Chronicler?
Yes. Now, it could have been worse. Could have been, what's his face? The crying dude.
Oh, no! Pariah?
Pariah, yes.
Oh, goodness gracious. The crying dude.
See him crying while he saves the whole multiverse.
God. Yes,
Anyway,
the Chronicler, our patron hero here at the Comic Book Chronicles. Goodness
yes,
gracious.
Indeed. Yes. We have sketches and everything. We own the rights. That's ours, DC. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway.
Well, I was about to say it's obviously not, it's just it's a funny coincidence at them in that regard.
Totally. We are our own heroes.
Next up, this is something that I kind of picked up on when I talked about Batman 3 Jokers #3 came out last week. In Batman 3 Jokers, the Dark Knight set out to solve the mystery of the 3 versions of the Joker. With Batman finally exploring this, it's actually a puzzle that was first introduced way back in 2015's Justice League: The Darkseid War. During the event, Batman sat on Metron's Mobius chair, which is a powerful artifact that holds all the knowledge in the universe. Of course, one of the first questions he asked, the chair, was the real identity of the Joker. To his surprise, the chair revealed that there wasn't one but 3 Jokers. which led to, the concept of the series. But apparently, um, mild spoiler alert, that's not exactly the case in Batman 3 Joker's #3. So, Batman may have already had some info on that regard. So why did he ask to share that specific question back then? Because it was back then 5 years ago. So, I mean, that's my editorializing that particular question. But
Fair enough.
it's pretty funny.
And yeah, it was like, wait, because if it was the case, of like, okay, he actually had a question for like 5 years ago just to come up to this point, like, really? I know they do some things ahead of time, but that's a reach. But also, I would like to point out that Batman, the world's greatest detective, and a lot of y'all prop up as being the savior of comic books, stupidly, did not know the Joker's identity, yet he knows everything, supposedly. Just putting that out there. Send your hate mail to I really don't care. Next up, all-star artists assembled to homage the complete Batman: The Dark Knight Returns #1. Let's get past a whole lot of this and basically say that for the past few months, several top-notch comic artists have been sharing on social media their individual redrawings of pages from Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. The shadowy hand of Laundry Project could be felt, and Newsarama has discovered that it's the work of an art collector named Christian Casares, along with artist representative Felix Liu of Felix's Comic Art. The duo is in the process of commissioning modern-day comic artists to recreate the entire first issue of Batman: Dark Knight Returns. This follows a similar group art recreations such as Giant Size X-Men #1 tribute to Wayne and Cockrum and Bartkira. A recreation of Akira but mashing up with the characters of The Simpsons. Oh, I didn't know that was an actual thing. I was wondering what the hell that was about. Okay. Weird. Dumb and weird. Anyway, that's the thing. I guess there's a quote here. The real root of it would have been the two pieces I had done in 2015, Lou says. For fun, I had Daniel Warren Johnson and James Herron do two of my favorite pages. I wouldn't even have thought about what Christian is doing. He decided to take it to the most logical extreme and do the whole damn thing of issue 1. Artists confirmed to be involved in this still ongoing project are Michael Allred, Jock, Cliff Chiang, Ryan Suk, Ryan Otley, James Herron, Riley Rossmo, Michael Walsh, Andy Bellinger, Moriat, and Matt Lesniewski. Yeah. Sorry if I butchered your name. But there you go. That's the thing. Have at it. Next.
The Batman origin gets a new spin in Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush #1.
Which is out this week.
This also came out this week.
Mm-hmm.
This is an alternate twisted version of DC Concepts. It's part of the Dark Knight's Metal and Dark Knight's Death Metal event. It doesn't have any sort of direct relation to the story of the crossover, but it definitely ties into the concept. So it's got a dark slant on these classic DC story.
Sure.
On this classic DC story.
Sure. Okay. Next up, Mr. Freeze's wife gets a voice of her own in Victor and Nora: A Gotham Love Tale, which also came out this week. DC's young adult graphic novel line puts a spotlight on one of Batman's most notorious villains this week, Mr. Freeze, in Victor and Nora: A Gotham Love Story. Wow. Focusing on the time before Mr. Freeze, aka Victor Freeze, became one of Batman's most popular villains, Victor and Nora: A Gotham Love Story shows a time in which he was just a normal teenager discovering what it means to fall in love. But what makes this stand out what makes it a standout is that the OGN a chance for this. Wow, that's a weirdly done sentence there. For this iconic relationship to be more than just a one-sided romance and gives a voice to his paramour, Nora. Then the rest of the article goes on to be an interview with the author. So yeah. Next.
All right. Hellblazer takes a Harry Potter turn in previews of 2021 DC middle grade graphic novels. Oh, you're obviously not the target audience for this. DC has revealed new covers and
Speak
some
for
interior
yourself.
preview images. What's that?
Speak for yourself.
Haha.
Totally kidding, but kind of sort of kidding.
DC has revealed new covers and some interior preview images from a trio of upcoming middle grade graphic novels aimed at readers 9 through 12, namely Metropolis Grove, The Mystery of the Meanest Teacher, a Johnny Constantine graphic novel, and Green Arrow Stranded. Yes, a graphic novel for 9 to 12-year-olds starring Hellblazer.
Sure, I'm with
It's
it.
probably a safe bet that 13-year-old Johnny Constantine has not yet picked up his 2-pack-a-day habit yet.
Or he has. I mean, we don't know.
Interesting. All right. The $9.99 novels introduce DC's most iconic superheroes, really most iconic superheroes, to a new generation of fans with stories told by some of the most successful authors from the middle grade publishing space. Reads the publisher's description of the line. The middle grade titles are standalone stories, not part of DC's ongoing continuity, and completely accessible to new readers who have no previous knowledge of DC characters. Okay.
See, 1870s hate on Green Arrow here, shining very much forth. But hey, you know what? Say there are. I consecutively say I know of a couple of Constantine fans, but that might also be because of the actor portraying him, and going back to Keanu Reeves more than the characters themselves. I'm not going to be the one to judge that, but let's just say probably. Anyway, next up, George Perez's Wonder Woman gets absolute treatment in 2021. So yeah, George Perez is getting a Wonder Woman. His Wonder Woman work reprinted in DC's Absolute format, created by IDW's Scott Dunbier back when he was EIC of Wildstorm Comics. An oversized, thick hardcover reprint on glossy pages with 12 issues or more. A thicker version of the French album format, which then was picked up by DC Comics across their titles, copied by Marvel, and then everyone else too, including the French. This is from Bleeding Cool, so you gotta take whatever from whatever. I mean, I'm sure there's probably some truth to it, but whatever. Absolute Wonder Woman God's Immortal will reprint his classic run on Wonder Woman 1 through 13 from 86 to 87, as well as his Wonder Woman work for Who's Who, the definitive director of the DC Universe, number 26, and the Who's Who update in 1987 1 through 3. It's 360 pages long for $125.
Hey, if you're a fan, that's a lot. You actually get a lot there.
True. Yeah, you would have to be. The volume will be published on the 20th of July, 2021. I mean, look, Perez is retired, and his work was regarded, and I believe, isn't there already a Teen Titans one?
What, an omnibus like this?
I want to say, yeah.
An absolute treatment?
I don't know if there's an absolute, but I know there's like omnibuses with stuff, or he has an artist, or is it an artist edition for some of his old stuff? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
I feel like there's probably some stuff out there for his other work, and they're just getting around to this. So, yeah. Anyway, moving right along.
Next up, Sony Interactive Entertainment revealed its second pre-order bonus for Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales video game. Early access to Miles' Spidey suit from Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. In an 11-minute gameplay video, Sony and developer Insomniac Games showed off the suit and its stylish animation style that makes the game feel just like the movie.
It really does. It's actually look pretty cool. You should check it out. I know you're not a big video game fan, but they kind of do some justice to the film's effect of the whole glitchy thing. Yeah, it's kind of cool. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, everyone, I don't know if it's everyone who pre-orders it or everyone who just buys that game, which is coming out next week, will get that suit. It probably says so here. But Yeah. Let's see. The people who pre-order will get the suit on launch day. So, yeah.
Cool.
The bonus is early unlocks, not exclusive content. The developer says. So yeah, November 12th is when, which is next week, on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Are you still planning on getting a console? Just out of curious, I know earlier, way back a few months ago.
I missed out on the pre-order, so I'm just gonna be patient.
Yeah, I wasn't.
You know, I wanted to let that first kind of rush go by because it's not like super high priority, but I definitely want to catch up to the times at least.
Yeah, because I'm alluding back to Agent 70. Granted, there's some back channel talk of Agent 70 may possibly wanting to get a PS4 during the beginning of pandemic.
Exactly. Because that was this is something that spans all the way back to the first Spider-Man game from a few years back. It wasn't strong enough to get me to buy it or to get me to commit at least, but it definitely was a thought. And especially during pandemic times, having a video game console might have made spending the time a little easier. I won't lie.
It very much has.
What's that?
It very much has.
Well, for some people, but then again, I'm much more of a binge watcher than Roddykat, so
right.
It's just a different type of pandemic experience for everybody.
True.
So, but right, so that's pretty cool.
But nevertheless, I will say, if you do plan on getting this Age of 7, I'm sure we will talk about this more if that should ever happen. There is, and we've talked about this before, huh?
With the PS5.
That and this game, but which I know we've talked about before, but because I think this game is going to be $50, and for $20 more you can get the remaster of the first Spider-Man game, along with in a particular version of this. So, and that's a relatively decent deal.
Okay.
So, because I think they're trying to push video games up to 70 anyway, but this happens to be like a standalone. It's not a full game; it's a standalone kind of thing. Which the differences are negligible, really. And of course, you can get this on PS4 and get a free upgrade to the PS5 version of the Miles Morales game if you bought the PS4 version now. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, so that might be something you might want to.
Wild that they're looking to push the price point of video games up to $70 a copy.
I mean,
for digital downloads to boot.
Yeah, I mean, it's been said that with the rise in video game production costs, and there has been some, but a lot of it also is publisher greed. But it's been 60 for a good while. Well, give or take, because obviously like AAA stuff is like 60, and that's the kind of the bar. And there are some stuff that still kind of come under that, or come under that because of whatever reasons. But 60 being the standard has been this way for a good while, and yeah, there's usually around console cycles, new console cycles. There's always this talk of it, but
Gotcha.
This could be the time where it could actually potentially happen. It hasn't happened yet, and there's still some stuff I've seen coming out like 60, even going into the new consoles. But we'll see. Anyway, that's a whole nother video game corner for a whole nother podcast. Scarlet Witch casts a spell over Marvel Champions, the card game. So Fantasy Flight Games will release Scarlet Witch Hero Pack and Scarlet Witch Game Mat, for use with Marvel Champions card game in January. The Scarlet Witch Hero Pack adds Wanda Maximoff to the games of Marvel Champions. Her deck focuses on the justice aspect, but also comes with various cards for the other aspects of the game. The deck comes ready to play as a 40-card pre-constructed deck, or precon, as some folks in the know would say, that will retain for $14.95. So this is basically like the other packs, like the Wrecking Crew pack and the Miss Marvel pack and the other packs that they've done, after the game came out. But there's also going to be a game mat, which will retail for $19.95, and you can see a picture of the game mats in the article attached. Next up, finally, the journalism action figure some people always wanted. Hasbro announced the latest edition
to its retro line of Spider-Man Marvel Legends action figures, bringing classic takes on beloved heroes and villains from Spider-Man's world. This is a J. Jonah Jameson Marvel Legend. It's clad in earth tones and a white shirt. He's got rolled up. He's got a rolled up Daily Bugle and a flat Daily Bugle. It's pretty cool. We have seen a J. Jonah Jameson head on a chameleon, as a variant head on a chameleon Marvel Legend from several years back now, and that's actually getting super hard to find, which explains why they wanted to put out this retro J. Jonah Jameson for people to get their hands on. I finally, what's funny is that I finally figured out after, several years of collecting now that a lot of these new figures are produced to appeal to the action figure photography folks.
Mm-hmm.
This is not for, and definitely for collectors too. Don't get me wrong, because there are people who are asking for these characters to complete their collections. But for characters like this that aren't necessarily of the superhero ilk, a lot of these characters are definitely produced because they would look cool in dioramas. So, and I'm not, listen, I'm not against that, but
Right.
when it comes to the figures that get produced, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize there was demand for this. But then I think, oh, there's probably people saying this would look cool in a diorama.
I feel like you are definitely right, but I also feel like that's kind of a side effect of things, because I don't think the action photography market is that big enough to kind of drive it. But at the same time, you're definitely right that it does appeal to those. I feel like you're right in that, and you're that it does appeal to those people as well as just the collectors just in general. Right. But worth noting, I think we definitely have talked about this retro line in recent episodes of the show. So this is just another in that line with the whole 90s Spider-Man treatment for the cardboard backing and whatnot.
Right. I've got all of them except for whatchamacallit. I did not get a chance to jump on the pre-order for this. I caught the news a little bit too late, but I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to pick it up through some channel, Entertainment Earth or whatnot. I actually did just get, I already took it out of the box and I'm prepping it for a Sinister Six display that I'm going to put up within the next week or so. This is the Mysterio from...
hold on. Let me give you the close-up shot. And boop. There we go.
This is the Mysterio. I've taken the cape and the fishbowl head off, and this is actually the head that's underneath, this translucent head for Mysterio. But this is the Mysterio from the retro Spider-Man Marvel Legends wave. It's pretty cool. The color scheme for his costume is much more consistent with what we're used to seeing, with the gold boots and the gold gauntlets and the gold gloves. So it's it's much more consistent with what we're used to seeing. So it's definitely a pretty clear repaint of a Mysterio we got within the last couple of years, but it's still pretty cool to get. And this will be going up in a Sinister Six versus Spidey. Speaking of dioramas, little diorama I'm going to put on my shelf back here. Like I said, within the next 2 weeks. But yeah, I'm probably going to pick up this J. Jonah Jameson as well, simply because it's kind of cool to have the figure up there on your shelf, and you can just imagine him yelling out, "Parker!" So.
True. And I was going to save, I still am going to, because I got a little show and tell of my own now that you say that, but I'll wait till when we finish the news so we can go ahead and wrap it up.
It just came up, I was about to say, because it literally tied into this particular news piece.
Mm-hmm. 1 sec. All right, cool. Moving right along as I switch back over. Speaking of figures, though, Sideshow puts a premium on the Mandalorian's Moff Gideon. So yeah, Sideshow's, I keep wanting to say Sideshow Bob, and that's totally not right. Giancarlo Esposito is one of those extras who's just great in anything, but yada yada yada. Sideshow Collectables is putting out a Moff Gideon premium figure. You can see him right here if you're watching the video. It's got the dark saber, which for anything else, is probably partially worth getting this figure for, depending on the scale. But hey, it's just a nice looking figure of Giancarlo Esposito as Moff Gideon, and it is going to be. Does it really say not? Does it really not say how much it is? Oh right, because I do remember seeing because I think it was teased on Sideshow Collectables site, but I don't think they gave okay, you're doing that, huh? Yeah, I don't think the price was even given then, but I'm just going to the site real quick to see if there's actually a price. Yeah, it just says sign up for the waiting list for it, so there's no price yet, but I guess we'll find out when they give it to us. Next up,
this is spoilers for this week's Avengers issue.
Yeah, kind of went over it already, but
exactly, we discussed it. But I'll just read the headline: Avengers Marvel reveals who the team's greatest villain may really be. I'll adjust it. In that
yeah, no,
regard.
exactly. I read in that exact same way too.
So, that's just my own editorializing on their headline. But yeah, circle back to our discussion on this week's issue of Avengers.
Fantastic Four take an old-fashioned family vacation and road trip #1 first look. So yeah, this is we've talked about this I can't remember if it was a one shot. It is a one shot by Christopher Cantwell of not the white supremacists, but the Halt and Catch Fire guy, and also Dr. Doom.
We should just call him comic book writer Christopher Cantwell.
I know, and probably that will happen, but I don't know if because I think he's still doing television stuff though, so I don't know if that's
he did.
So
comic and television writer Christopher Cantwell.
But yes, he's doing Dr. Doom and actually Iron Man right now. So he's pretty much got the armored hero/villain section of the Marvel universe at this point. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's going to be a Machine Man coming. We don't know. No, I'm just kidding. We don't really need that. Yeah. And hopefully, Agent 70 on a side note has or will read Next Wave. But anyway. This is basically an article that has some preview pages for Fantastic Four Road Trip #1, which is coming December 2nd. And if the name itself doesn't tell you what's kind of the conceit here, I don't know what to tell you. Next up.
Right. Next up, in a host of announcements related to King in Black, because it's only a matter of time before Null sets its sights on Black Panther's Nation of Wakanda. An upcoming February 2021 one-shot titled King in Black, Black Panther, will examine how T'Challa balances his duties leading the Avengers against protecting his people against the god of symbiotes, all while utilizing some advanced Wakandan weapons. Okay.
So, I in deference to the writer, because we loved him, I had a weird issue with the headline because I'm just like, usually any upgrades that T'Challa gets is a Wakandan upgrade, so that was a little redundant, but
Yeah, but there might be something in the preview.
Oh, I know. Like I said, there's probably more to it than just that, but I know. But it's like I said, just my initial reading of that headline was like, what?
Yeah. So, shout out to Tim Dog 98.
Yeah. Always. Anyway, next up, the King in Black adds Captain America, Hulkling, Wiccan to the mix. Because, Lord have mercy, we don't need any more tie-ins. But apparently, there's 2 more tie-ins being put into this crossover, of which I'm more and more hating by the moment. Anyway, first off, from writer Tini Howard and artist Luciano Vecchio comes King in Black, Wiccan, and Hulkling. A one-shot that sends the newly married young Avengers to the Shi'ar Empire for their honeymoon until their holiday is interrupted by Null and his symbiotic forces. And if you're saying to yourself, well, wait, why would Null be out in space when he's focused on Earth? Well, that's not true. And all of this started off in space with Silver Surfer Black. Plus, the most recent issue, of Guardians of the Galaxy kind of expounded on Null's reach, much to my chagrin.
Right. I would also add there was a book out this week called Empires. I think it was King in Black, Empire's End. Something like that. Hold on,
Web of Venom. Is that Web of Venom?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what it was. That's.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
I skimmed it. Yeah, Web of Venom, Empire's End,
Yes.
and this was, it's a logical it's a logical continuation of the Null story because, they're starting out at point A. They have to, they kind of, you don't have to chronicle the voyage from point A to point B, but that's essentially what is happening here. So we get some of the players that a few of the players that we saw in Empire interact with the wave of symbiotes as they head from one outlying alien planet to another. On their way to Earth, really.
Yep. Wait, there is also another one with the aforementioned Captain America, which is King in Black Captain America #1, which is out in February, and that King in Black Wiccan and Hulkling is due out in March. So, yeah. All right, next up. Meanwhile, Outlaw, by the way, still hasn't quote-unquote finished, and there's still, stuff up in the air from other events.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say about it anymore because, we obviously know the reason for it.
Yep.
Whether or not we agree with how they're coping with it and how they're adjusting their publishing schedule to it is another story.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. It's hard to complain about it because we know it's got to be tough. Something like this would throw anybody's publishing schedule out the window, but it's tough to kind of see all this stuff and try and the coordination or lack thereof is just kind of tough to deal with. But obviously we're a little more affected by it because we read so much more than maybe some of the people who kind of stick to their corner of the Marvel universe.
Right. I don't know. I figure even with knowledge of publishing stuff is still kind of easier. Like, it doesn't make it right, granted, because everything you just said is definitely in effect. But also when you have, and I know this is not necessarily that affected by it because of when it started out, but the X stuff seems to be going on unabated. But that started at a different time than some of this other stuff, so you definitely have to take that into account. But I feel like the reshuffling still could have worked for these other events. I feel like it kind of speaks to the it speaks to how they feel about these events.
I was about to say, I think it speaks more to marketing because they want to tie things in with the big events.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like it speaks more to that than their how they feel about and in some ways how they feel about certain things and certain books and certain other events than
they want
how
to tie in we all understand that that's what they want to do. They want to tie in some of these books that could use a boost into big events to give it more exposure. So
right.
We understand, don't necessarily agree. So
there is that.
In the event,
next up,
new fan art puts a retro spin on Star-Lord's Guardians of the Galaxy middle finger scene. Artist John Black put a retro twist on the classic middle finger scene. Black draws Peter Quill in a style similar to an old comics panel. However, the artist puts Peter Quill in a blue and white costume rather than the more casual outfit he wore in the live action sequence. It's just like a cool little retro looking comic art panel.
Yeah, it's not bad done. Not badly done. Artistic license. Some of this is a little late, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Comixology sales. A huge Justice League sale, Star Wars, TMNT, and U.S. Agent, Avengers West Coast, Avengers. have been going on Comixology, and a lot of them end today as of this recording on the 5th. Well, yes, yesterday because it just passed midnight. But I think there is some stuff that is still on sale through the 9th. So basically check Comixology. There might be some stuff on sale that you might want to check out. There's some stuff here that was on sale from Justice League, Injustice, some Captain America stuff. Obviously, you know, the U.S. agent stuff. A lot of that kind of ended today, but there's some, let's see, so some Star Wars stuff that's still on sale until the 12th. There's, I think there was something that supposedly ended off, that ends on the 9th in here, but regardless, it is, you know, it was what it is. Oh, Justice League Task Force, but I think that was, yeah, there we go. Justice League Task Force, which is also a Priest written book. There's a sale on that stuff from until the 9th, if you are so interested. Next up.
Ah, this is kind of up my alley. Vault Comics' new hit series, Giga, is a mecha lover's dream. It's a subtle homage to stories like Neon, Genesis, Evangelion, and Transformers, plus an expansive world-building, time-traveling storyline with a murder mystery to boot, all make for an exciting first issue out this week. I gotta see if I can pick this up. Do we have it?
I don't think we do. No, because we don't have any Vault Comics stuff. Because there was another Vault Comics thing that came out this week that I was going to look for. Yeah, this one also kind of, me also being a fan of Giant Mix, which also noticed they didn't mention Gundam, which
I was about to say the art. I looked at the webpage that the story care of Sci-Fi or Sci-Fi.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to the Blurred Girl, by the way. She's doing big things.
Yeah, that looks like a Gundam at the top of this page.
Yep. So the fact that I'm not gonna falter for evoking Eva, but in Transformers, but hey, the Gundam thing is like right there. So regardless, but yeah, this seems interesting. This is an article. Basically, this is an article with the writer of Giga, and this also goes into some of the story. According to this, the first 5 pages are kind of full of what's going on. So yeah, I will probably be trying to grab a copy and checking this out myself because it seems kind of interesting and definitely sounds very Gundam anime.
Definitely, and that's an anime that's on my list. I've made my way through, and I admit that because oftentimes I've been watching anime while I was doing my Inktober stuff. I was listening to the English dub because it's easier to follow. You don't have to be focused on subtitles.
Sure.
So, but I know that the dub is what a lot of people watched when it came out on Cartoon Network.
Tsunami, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's not one of those anime that people are just like, no, you can't watch the dub. You have to watch the subtitles.
Oh, there are some people like that, but yeah, with some Gundam stuff, yeah, people are less crazy about that stuff. And I mean, the dub's not bad as opposed to older stuff, So yeah, the dub's all right. The dub's all right. Pretty cool.
I've watched several episodes of the first season. So
wait, did you get through Wing?
What's that?
Did you get through Wing?
No, I'm still working.
You're still working it? Okay.
Still, I mean, there's lots of episodes. I've only gotten through maybe 10 episodes of the first season.
So you're basically still on Earth. Gotcha.
I was about to say I'm still very confused by the fact that these are little kids. Spoiler alert. That these are basically young kids with these cool machines. I'm just like fine.
A 20, 30-year-old
child
anime.
soldiers. What's that?
You know what? You will come to find that there's a lot of that in anime, much less Gundam.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're shocked by that now, you won't be by the end. By
Oh, I know. I mean, it's just odd to be like, wow, there's a lot of pigeons running around here, and obviously, even if you go back to something like Akira, all these are really young characters who were protagonists and antagonists and supporting characters in a lot of these anime and even manga and related manga. So but yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm like, wow, these are what's up with these little bratty kids, man.
Like I said, that is a whole thing. But anyway, but like I said, we will probably try to check out maybe next week if we got a chance to check this out some kind of way, then we'll give some afterthoughts on what we've you know, or I'm
Well,
sure it's, you know,
Yeah.
on this thing. Next up, though, Image Comics to publish Mirka Andolfo's Sweet Paprika. Comic book writer artist Mirka Andolfo, known for her work on Mercy, has landed another Image Comics title. Per an official announcement from Image, Andolfo will write and illustrate a comic book series based on her IP Sweet Paprika, the characters of which have been a mainstay of her social media feed for some time. Editing, hello. Additionally, Sweet Paprika has already landed an animated series at Arankia, my apologies, Studios, and Grey Ladder Productions with Love, Death, and Robots, Gabriel Penicolio attached as an executive producer. So if you've watched Love, Death, and Robots, and I've seen a couple episodes of that, if it's going to be in that same vein, then yeah, it's going to look good at the very least. Arancia will produce Andolfo's Sweet Paprika comic, which is slated to launch in July of 2021. The book was originally announced by Edizioni Star Comics, which had me thinking of Marvel Star Comics, and I'm like, I know good and well that imprint is no longer around, which will publish it in Andolfo's home country of Italy. Image will publish Sweet Paprika in the United States, and I know somebody else in France. So apparently it's called a sexy rom-com with reverse roles and stuff. So, but you can check that out at your leisure. You probably already know about it. Next up,
these are spoilers for Power Rangers Dracon New Dawn number 3. It's on sale now. It's probably out last week.
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, last week. The story was published like 4 days ago. So, a famous Red Ranger just revealed himself to be an evil emissary of the Dark Spectre in Lord Dracon's home timeline, and
Who?
so
yeah, like I said earlier with Mighty Morphin, there's a whole thing that's still kind of going on, and this I lost the thread a while back, but maybe I'll catch up one of these days. Who even knows? But next up, speaking of Power Rangers news, well, we kind of talked about this, so no need to really go through it. But Mighty Morphin reveals Zordon's secret past, and that is in reference of the Mighty Morphin book that came out this week that I talked about earlier. And yeah, there's some flashbacks of, like I said earlier, some pre-disembodied head Zordon doing some things. There you go. Next.
Red Sonja is going to battle alongside heroes in a new comic book series. Dynamite Entertainment has announced Red Sonja, The Superpowers #1, the first issue of a new comic book series for release in 2021. Red Sonja has battled all types of monsters throughout her Hyborian adventures, but now she tests her skills against and alongside superheroes. Okay.
Yeah, sounds familiar, huh? Like another Hyborian that is sided with some superheroes from another company. Weird, huh?
What a kinky dink!
I know, right? Huh? It's always kind of. I mean, I know Dark Horse is kind of holding on to IP as much as they can. I was kind of wondering how come. I know it is his own thing, but it's still within the realm of Conan. Like, why didn't Marvel get Red Sonja along with Conan? But I'm sure there's some. It's like a Sony Marvel thing. I'm sure, like, not even worth getting into or care about. But it is what it is. Nevertheless, next up, in a world where speech is banned, one woman speaks out in Lattice Society. I don't know. I was trying to go somewhere with that. Didn't work. Anyway, during this pivotal time in world history, a new creator-owned comic series called The Lattice Society imagines a future where all speech is banned by the U.S. government, but one woman dares to speak. The year is 2064. Due to a rise in hate crimes and violence, the American people have voted to abolish words. Censorship in language seemed like the only way to combat many of the issues that surfaced. Or you can ban guns and give everybody microphones to settle beefs, as in this one anime that I've recently watched. Anyway, let's see, reads the description of the series. So from rampant racism, online trolling, and death threats to gender pronouns, Islamophobia, and government accountability, our society sought an opposite extreme. This is what they want you to believe. And the writer Ellie Moskowitz and artist Mirko Ladik intend the latter society to be a parable for the present time. Pretty much sounds like ripped from the headlines, and a warning for how things could turn. So yeah, says now more than ever we need to know the path of that our world is taking. Says Moskowitz. The latter society shows one path, expanding the limits of the comic genre and challenging the ability for society to communicate without words. The book will be a wordless comic book series and will be released simultaneously in comic book form as well as animated motion comic video, and one of which you can check out at the bottom of this article. So that's kind of ambitious. Like we've had, silent issues before for things, notably G.I. Joe. I believe Batman's has had a couple ones. I believe. Wait, isn't that the whole Crux of Hush? I don't remember. Or
no. But I think they've done silent issues, in other books. Obviously, that Snake Eyes, the first appearance of Storm Shadow,
right?
Is the whatchamacallit, the progenitor of all of them.
Right. So this is going to be the first time that this is going to be a fully wordless, or presumably fully wordless, rather, comic book series, which. Kind of interesting premise, if not a little close to home, but I don't know.
I was about to say, talk about putting the onus on the artist for storytelling purposes.
Right. I know, right? This will definitely be we'll see how that works out.
Mm-hmm.
Next up,
Can't just focus on big splash pages.
No, and yeah, there's got to be a particular way you're going to end up doing this. So.
All right, next up, Comic Books for Kids, a charitable organization formed to provide free child-friendly comics and graphic novels to kids in hospitals, cancer centers, and medical facilities across the U.S., is expanding its focus to include members of the military in addition to kids, the organization announced. Through Comic Books for Troops, the charity will provide the military comics through partner organizations. This change will allow the organization to utilize donated comics not appropriate for younger readers. It's already started this initiative and has donated 7,000 comics to all branches of the military in the past 90 days. The organization has also begun a partnership with Funko and is shipping Funko toys to kids across the country. That's cool.
That is. Last but not least, Doctor Who confirms Merlin fan theory, and I'm sure Agent 70 is glad he didn't get the story.
I'm glad. When I saw that we had one more, I was like, "What story?" Oh, seriously.
Yes. Agent 70 being not so much of a Whovian fan, maybe we'll get him there, but I highly doubt it. Anyway, Doctor Who has finally explained the true origin of Merlin, an alternate reality version of the Doctor himself, which ties back to the era of Sylvester McCoy's Doctor. The longest-running TV series in the world, the secret of Doctor Who's success is the time travel concept. That means it can reinvent itself in practically any way, and pretty much kind of has all. In the case of the 7th Doctor story, Battlefield, which I feel like I remember watching at some point in time, which released in 1989, it actually dove into sword and sorcery. Battlefield was inspired by the legends of Camelot and King Arthur, and it revealed that the Doctor was actually Merlin. Quote unquote, he has many faces, but in my reckoning, he is Merlin, one Arthurian warrior, Anselin, observed. Do you not ride the ship of time? Does it not deceive the senses being larger within than without, which is pretty much a long-running Doctor Who thing? Matters were pretty much settled when the Doctor visited an archaeological dig associated with King Arthur and was able to read the inscriptions. It's my handwriting, he explained simply. And ever since then, viewers have speculated how the Merlin Doctor can possibly fit into the timeline. Now the metal has been finally settled in a upcoming book, or actually a book that just came out, I guess. The BBC has published a new fact book called The Monster Vault, containing information on both the new and classic Doctor Who monsters. One such deal with a demon briefly unleashed in Battlefield, the Destroyer, not to be confused with the one from Marvel. And it reveals the truth behind the Merlin Doctor at last. So there you go, Whovians. You got some more lore in the whole 80, 90 years, I'm exaggerating, of Doctor Who lore. And that, folks, is the end of the news. And actually, before, well, you know what? Let's get into the ads first, and then I'll do my show and tell.
All right, last ad of the night is for Wink, because we need a drink.
Lord knows.
It's our personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to Cabernet to Torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your taste and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink wines through CSPN. Do it today.
Alrighty, real quick before we close this out, I got a little toy corner, or extended session on the toy corner, because as Agent 70 already knows, I got my Falcon.
Oh, you mean this Falcon?
Yes, that Falcon.
Because of course I opened mine already.
Yeah, and I haven't yet because this is not working. So you know what? Here you go.
Exactly. I was about to say with your virtual background.
Yeah, that's not going to work. I don't feel like turning it off. So yeah. So here you go, folks. Mm-hmm. There's the Falcon all boxed up, and as you can see with let me put a close up back on Agent 70 here real quick. There you go. There is the unopened. Oh wait, there's the opened Falcon. Wings spread, looking.
He's kind of fun.
Really?
Kind of fun. Like I'm thinking about doing a little cap display with all of his erstwhile allies. Okay. You know, including Falcon, Bucky / Winter Soldier, and Widow, and Agent 13 Sharon Carter that we've in Marvel Legends form.
Nice.
So I'm definitely, there's a reason why I didn't put them into not cold storage. I didn't even, I was just kind of having some fun playing with his wings. It's just cool. I mean, obviously these are based off of the Vulture wings, but it's the same concept. But I really like the execution of this. I'm really annoyed that we did not get a Red Wing.
Yeah, that's a missed opportunity. This Falcon.
That would have been a nice addition. Yeah, it makes me think maybe I need to go find a Falcon. What is it? Those hobby stores like Michael's and stuff. Those craft stores. They have like those little plastic figures of animals. That people use for dioramas and such, or like model train sets and stuff. I'm like, maybe I just need to go find a Falcon and or go to like a dollar store and look for one of those little Falcon, like plastic toys.
Or you could put a bird on it, like they said in Portlandia.
Oh no. I was about to say that reference went over my head, but okay.
Oh, you never watched Portlandia? I think you would really like it. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, unless you don't like Fred Armisen, but that's a whole nother situation.
Yeah. Say.
But also, and I think it also got this one. But
oh yeah, it's the
Jocasta. Yes. And also, both of these come from the Joe Fixit Build-A-Figure, which had me for like 5 seconds thinking, should I get the rest of the season to Joe Fixit? And the answer ended up being no, but still.
It's the video game Joe Fixit. That's why I said nay.
I mean, it's still...
Because I wanted the comic book Joe Fixit.
I mean, still kind of is, though, because there is a Joe Fixit comic-wise in his suit.
I know.
But... I
it just doesn't look like the Joe Fixit, that I would identify as Joe Fixit. So, because it's a comic book based, video game based, I'm just like, nah. I mean, we'll see. Listen, Marvel Legends is churning out all sorts of cool stuff, so you never know. They might very well get around to it.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who are like, who the hell is Jocasta? You know, because she's not been in the MCU, which is kind of a shame if they had gone that whole Ultron right in the proper Ultron way in the proper way. But
Right.
that's neither here nor there. Ultron is pretty much, I mean, excuse me, Jocasta is pretty much the bride of Ultron. Ultron made her off the brain patterns of Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp. Classically.
It would have been interesting to see if they had done, because the thing is, they needed to squeeze in both the origin of Vision, right, which worked. You know, I mean, I didn't like the background of it. I liked the execution of it because it felt very much like it was true to the comic book spirit, not true to the story, but true to the spirit. Right.
Plus, we got Egghead in there, and they did nothing with that.
Right. So, but ultimately, it would have been interesting to see how they would have given Jocasta an MCU origin. You know, whose brainwaves they would have maybe be based her on.
Probably,
given that there is a lack of female heroes. At that point in the generation, in the story of the MCU. So it would have been interesting to see.
And but think about it. Age of Ultron probably would have set that up because he did have that whole thing with whole scene and whatnot because he had taken her hostage. So I wouldn't be surprised if he had.
With Widow?
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if that could have been something that would have happened.
Yeah. I was going to say just very quickly, Iron Man 2020 had Jocasta in it, and Iron Man the last part of Slot's run had Jocasta in it too.
Right. Yeah. So she could. So that was the thing. Comic wise, she hasn't done a whole lot outside of what was just mentioned, and even back classically in the Avengers where she was showing up a lot, they kind of put her off. I mean, they really didn't do a whole lot with her. In fact, it kind of just she was table dressing in a lot of ways, which led her to run off at one point in the Avengers run. But I liked Jocasta. There could have been more that could have been done with her. And I'm pretty sure they killed her a couple of different times. But and I'm also kind of surprised, if I'm not mistaken, they did not use her in Avengers AI, which I'm thinking there's probably a good reason for that. I don't know. Or she might have been referenced there. I don't remember. But that was like 2011 or so. I don't know. That's a long time ago. Regardless, those are the figures.
Did you get a Kang?
I did not get a Kang. I was still thinking about it.
I was about to say, I put my Kang away already. So, but yeah, no, the Kang is actually a pretty cool figure.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. That's what prompted me to kind of like, there's a couple of these I actually might want to get. So,
right. I mean, you're more of a fan of the video game stuff than I am, so you might actually appreciate the Iron Man and the Cap. So.
No, I mean, no.
Or you could find someone that might want to buy it off you. That's another way to look at it.
Nah, I'm not gonna do that.
I'm always reminded of what William Bruce West, shout out to William Bruce West, tells me every time I complain about having to buy figures I don't like. He's like, just sell them. And I'm like, oh, but that means I got to worry about shipping them and crap like that online.
Well, see,
but
yeah, I was about to say, the problem with that is like, if you're him and used to selling stuff, that's great and that's easy. Not for us.
Right, exactly. What I was going to say is there is a market. Obviously, you're not going to get as much money because it's much like selling your comic books to a comic book store. There are stores that buy and sell loose figures. So there is a market. You're just not going to get the money that you're maybe expecting for your stuff. So, but there is a way to do it that's maybe a little bit less of a hassle than having to ship stuff out on your own.
Amazon, but you still have to send it to them. So.
No. I'm talking about. Oh, you mean in addition to like going on like eBay or Mercari? I gotcha.
Right. Like that is another way, but.
Right. So, but but in any event, that's pretty cool that you got that. Congratulations. I'm glad you got that Falcon, and I'm glad you got the Jocasta.
Yes.
I definitely have an updated list of displays. Like I said, I added the Cap and his allies to a little display. To a list of displays I want to put up because now with Falcon, it makes it that much better.
Right. I mean, the obvious Captain America and Falcon issue, probably issue 1, I would imagine, would also, work. Or was it issue 1? Yeah, it probably was because, there wasn't a Captain Falcon book.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously they retitled the Captain America book to make Captain America and Falcon in the 70s.
Right.
And there was one I believe in the 90s. I don't know if it was after 2000 or not, but I think it was the late 90s.
Yeah, it looks like there's a Priest one from, I'm guessing it's 90s. I can't really tell.
I want to say it's the late 90s. It could have been the early 2000s. I do remember that.
It says 2004 for this one.
There it is, the early 2000s.
Yeah. And that's issue 3 I'm looking at. But yeah, this is 2004 for that one. And of course, like you said, the 70s one.
Yep.
And actually, I honestly didn't know about that one, so I might have to go and check that out. Yeah, I don't remember that one.
I mean, I read some issues here and there, so it wasn't bad.
And again, it's Priest, so I'm kind of down for that. So, but regardless, that is that. And we're going to end this here. I don't remember that one either. Oh, yes, I do. Anyway, sorry, I'm looking covers.
It's one of those things where you hope that it's all on Marvel Unlimited.
I would like to believe that should be. If it's not, there's a real big problem, and especially with Falcon and Winter Soldier coming out. Like, that'd be crazy not to have that out there. But yeah, I would definitely be checking that out after the show, which means we're going to end this show right now. Thank you each and every one of you folks for coming out. This was a lengthy one. I was about to say,
not all of it is on there.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't look, unless there's only 14 issues to it, which is
that actually might be the case though. Yeah,
maybe the case. If it is only 14 issues, then yeah.
And actually, for that time period, that probably sounds about right, honestly. Which is a sad thing to say, but it is what it is. So,
well, this round, I was about to say, this is around disassemble time too, unfortunately.
Exactly. So. Yeah. In fact, yeah, the disassembled cover is one I was looking at. So this definitely runs right into that. But hey, guess what? If you got multiple Marvel Unlimited, you can check that out for yourself. And on that, and again, we're not being sponsored by Marvel Unlimited. If they want to, hey, I'm bring it on. But we get nothing. We're just saying it's a good service. It works. That being said, though, this is the end of Comic Book Chronicles. Thank you each and every one of you for coming out. We will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. I have been Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at NewsNotes on Twitter. CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. And more likely, bucking his way to have a spot on Binge Mode Podcast, so maybe find him on there sooner rather than later. PCN_Dirt on Twitter, PopCultureNet on Twitter, PopCultureNetwork.com, and his umbrella sites therein. Also, I still haven't figured out whether he's still doing that bite. One of these days, I'll ask him, if I care enough to think about it. But BYTE Bite, the Vine replacement under Comic Reviews, no vowels. Tim, DOGG98, the Osiris that this is. Tim Dog98 on Twitter. CB Chron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. You can, send us some hays and highs and how you doing, and we love the shows there. If you feel so inclined, we'll probably see it. Also, The Click Nation on Twitter. That's DKLIQNATION. TheClickNation.com. And also, Comic Resources is over there writing his face off. You can find this here podcast on the Cold Lizard Podcast Network. That's CSPN.US.
Do it today.
US. It just reminding me of the toy from the 70s, and it's like, every time I say that, and it's just I gotta stop it. But you can also find this here podcast on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, or Apple Podcasts if you prefer, Spotify, or the Cold Slave Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. There's probably a couple other podcast aggregate sites out there, but we don't know, and don't really go all that far out to find those. You can find us here every Thursday night on the aforementioned YouTube channel. Oh, actually, I didn't mention the YouTube channel, but the YouTube channel of the Click Nation. That is youtube.com/TheClickNation, spelled the same way I did earlier. You can also find us on Twitch, which by hello to everyone, and thank you for the new follows on Twitch that we got. Twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles. You can follow us over there, where we stream the show every Thursday night, 9:30ish p.m. And hopefully we'll get some other stuff going on that channel too. I'm actually thinking about playing some Spider-Man on there one of these days. But I don't know if anybody wants to see my terrible Spider-Man playing.
Oh no.
Especially since I hadn't played in a good while. But that being said, folks, again, we'll be back next week. We'll see y'all then. More news, more stuff. Wait, what's next week? Yeah, okay. Hopefully we'll have a president by that time.
No, let them count all the votes, please.
Yes, and hopefully it goes the way we would like it to go, and not the way it's been. But that's a whole nother situation. Pray for us, world. Anyway, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
Wakanda forever!